Look at us. Look at us hanging out on a Thursday night. That's kind of rare. What's going on, guys? Royal Rumble 2023 weekend is on our doorstep. Here we are on the Thursday night to have some fun this evening. I took the night off from work, had this date set on the calendar for a couple of weeks because we have not done a Q&A in a while, and it's been a long time since we just sat up here, hung out, shot the shit, talked about wrestling, talked about life, that kind of stuff. So I thought, what better way to make use of a Q&A than to couple it with Royal Rumble predictions? And since this pay-per-view has got a lot surrounding it, there's going to be so much discussion, so much speculation, and a lot of new information coming in the last couple of days about WWE's plans for the Royal Rumble, which has really turned everything upside down, and there's really not a clear path that we can see yet for WrestleMania. That path might become a little bit more lit after Saturday, but as of right now, there's a lot of different directions they can go, and everything really, really focused and centered around the bloodline based on what we saw last week on Monday. So all of these thoughts and a lot of discussion that I thought I was going to be having about The Rock tonight, maybe not so much. So we're going to be getting into all of the Royal Rumble predictions, the scenarios, the what ifs, the surprises, surprise entrants. Are we going to see title changes? Are we going to see some big swerve? And all the potential that we could possibly see at the Royal Rumble. We're going to get into that as well. As some wrestling news, I want to talk a little bit about last night's Dynamite. This past week's Raw, which we did watch together, Raw 30 pulled in an unbelievable rating. Dynamite was actually pretty decent last night as well for their rating. We're going to talk some wrestling news. AEW has announced a European broadcasting deal, which is very good for them. Vince McMahon spotted back at Titan Towers. We got a couple of trademarks that have been filed by Matt Cardona, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Zack Ryder show up on Saturday in the Royal Rumble. I'm going to talk a little bit about that worked shoot angle that was done at Wrestle Kingdom the other night with Okada and Kaito Kiyomiya, which was really interesting, which we did not talk about last weekend because I didn't see it. I finally saw it earlier this week, so I figured we would touch on that as well. And of course, we will predict the entire Royal Rumble pay-per-view, all of the matches, potential surprises, and what I think could happen. And a lot of that speculation is going to be driving into WrestleMania and Elimination Chamber, in the next couple of months, because you have to put those shows in your mind too and think about where they could go there and how the story is going to play out for WrestleMania. Because right now it seems like it's going to be really hard. WWE, I think, is finding themselves in a situation where they were with Daniel Bryan back in 2014. It's going to be really hard for them to not book Sami Zayn to win the Royal Rumble at this point without letting a huge portion of the audience down. So you have to wonder if Sami should even be in the Royal Rumble. But we'll talk about that. And what WWE could do to, number one, make the best of the hottest storyline they've had in a while also not disappointing any fans. And that's why I think Cody and The Rock, as much as I love them both, and I would love to see Cody win the Rumble and go challenge Roman Reigns, I would love to see the Rock come in and challenge Roman Reigns. Those guys are in the way of a really, really awesome storyline right now with the Bloodline, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, most importantly. And I don't want to fuck any of that up. So I think it's almost best for the current storylines for them just to keep going without somebody coming in and shoehorning themselves into that angle. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about all that stuff as well as it pertains to the Royal Rumble. And then we will finish up tonight by just hanging out and answering some questions. All of the channel members had an opportunity to ask questions on the community tab there, where it was a members only post just for you guys. So I got a ton of those from the channel members. Everybody else sent their questions into my email, with the exception of one, my friend Amado Gonzalez. What did you say about Hollywood Rock? That must be you, A-Dog Gons. A Hollywood Rock Good Mic Work is live from San Diego. Yeah, I'm definitely in San Diego. I'm not just some Rudy Poo candy ass living on the corner of Know Your Old Boulevard and Jabroni Drive. I am in the whale's vagina, and it's awesome here. I'm so glad you're here. Amato, you were the only one because you just tweeted me a minute ago, where can I send my question? I'm like, you know what? Just kick it to me in a DM. So I do have one DM from Amato. If you guys are on the social medias and you're on Twitter right now, if you want to send me a DM and a question, you can. I'll try to get with it or get to it tonight. Otherwise, I've dumped a bunch of questions into a document here. I'll start knocking those out one at a time later on, as well as the questions that came into the email. And I will be answering lots of questions in the chat as well. Anybody who sends a super chat will be acknowledged and answered, and I will do my best to answer anything else in the chat that I think is answerable. But if you're going to ask me to book an entire WrestleMania card or something like that, I'm not going to do that. I don't have time for that, but I can't think that much. But some of these questions were really good. Some of them we've talked about before. Some of them we have not. And one of them, I had a lot of questions from one gentleman about my restaurant career and things like that. So we'll be getting into that too, because a lot of you guys really do like the restaurant stories, and I've got all sorts of stuff to say about that. So we are a little bit later than normal here. It is 6 p.m. on the West Coast, so it's dinner time for me. But if you are on the East Coast, it's 9 p.m., so hopefully you nerds can stay up and you won't fall asleep before 10 p.m. But then again, if you're one of those people that have to work at the butt crack of dawn, I understand if you have to go to sleep and you live on the East Coast. No hard feelings, but hopefully you guys can stay up because we don't really have any sort of time restraint here on the format. We're just going to talk, shoot the shit. Have not done one of these streams in a long time, so I thought it would be fun just to come out here and hang out. And you guys are getting a lot of me this week. Last night, I was up here to watch Dynamite with you guys, and I wasn't even planning on it, but once they announced the Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal match, I wanted to make sure I was here. So when you combine Monday night, I was here watching Raw 30 with you guys. Last night, we watched Dynamite together. Here we are tonight for a big, long stream predictions, and we're going to be up here on Saturday to live react to the entire Royal Rumble pay-per-view. So the link is already up on the channel right now. The link is also in the description below. You can go over there and click it, save it for Saturday. We'll be up here spending a lot of time together. I'm going to drink some energy drinks, and I'm going to make sure I'm energized and ready. So not only I can kick back and hang back and watch the show with you guys, but hopefully we can stay up here afterwards and give you guys some sort of a review, even though it's going to be an unprepared review. I'm going to be watching the show, maybe jotting down a couple of notes, but I'm not going to be as prepared as I am for a normal review. But I would definitely like to give you guys a recap after the show. So it's going to be many hours of good mic work on Saturday as well. So yeah, a lot of me. As of right now, I don't have a classic watch-along plan for Sunday. The reason being is because this Sunday is Championship Sunday in the NFL, and the two games that decide the Super Bowl are being played. That's usually a pretty big day. I might even have plans to watch one of the games. I'm not sure yet. So right now, the watch-along is up in the air. However, if we did do a watch-along, we would be starting only like midway through the second game. So we could actually still monitor the game. I've had good audience on watch-alongs despite playoff football. We got the game on. We're eyeballing it, talking about the score as we watch the show. I might still do that on Sunday, even though it's Championship Sunday and there's going to be a lot of other distractions. We might still be up here to watch a classic show anyway. I'm just not 100% sure on that. So I will decide within the next 48 hours. If I'm going to do a watch-along, we'll do... I don't know if we should even do a Royal Rumble. I don't even know what we should do for Sunday. I mentioned possibly doing a Monday Nitro for the channel members, but I still want that to be a completely other day. So I got to figure out what we're going to do for Sunday. So Sunday's the only day I don't really have figured out yet on the channel, which is a good reason to subscribe since I'm so goddamn wishy-washy. And also follow me on social media at Good Mic Work on the Twitters and at Good Mic Work 1 on the Instagrams. Other than that, all I want is your like. We got about, 40-ish likes on the channel right now, or on the video. So let's get that number up. Like it, like it, like it. Let me go over here to the chat and say hello to everybody who is here. Knock out any super chats that might be coming in now, and then we will start getting into the wrestling news, followed by the Royal Rumble predictions, and then it's Q&A time. So cheers to you. Happy Thursday. Glad you guys are here. I got my nice 805 opened up, and I'll knock back a couple of these as we hang out tonight. Let's go through here and hit all of the awesome channel members first. Michael Kumo, you're the first one I see. How Wheezy in the house. Glad you're here, my friend. The Juliet is here. Zane G is here. Ruben Litton in the house. JJ Leg. Michael, I think I got you already. Zach Palgett. The Juliet. Max Pokebra. K-Dogs. Kennel, what's up, Kevin? Tomorrow morning, I will be working my last shift at the Walmart I've been employed at for 18 years. Holy shit. Starting at my new store, Saturday morning, gonna be a new environment. Good for you, man. I'm excited for you. I hope that was by choice. We're going to be talking about that later on as I talk about my career and things that I've done. I've made changes and changed my environments multiple times in my life in order to keep things fresh and keep myself happy and keep myself motivated. And I don't know if that's the same situation you're in or not. Maybe you just needed an environment change. Everybody needs one of those too. And 18 years is a long time. I hope they take care of you there, man, because you have definitely put in a hell of a lot of time on Martin Luther King Day. this past week or last week was my 12-year anniversary at the place that I have been. And I spent 10 years at the place before that. So I'm always a long-term employee myself wherever I tend to work. And that's really awesome for you, Kevin. Congrats to you. And we'll be talking more about careers and jobs and all that bullshit later on. Nick Musser is here. So is Ronnie. What's up, man? Glad you're here too. Deshaun Robinson. All my friends are here. This is so nice. It's like I got friends and shit. Let me see. I want to get the channel members first before we circle back. Kevin, good to see you as well. I think that rounds it out for the members, at least for right now. But I also have to say hi to Amato Gonzalez. I'm looking at Amato's very sweet Bret the Hitman Hart banner. Thing's 5 feet long that he sent to me. It's hanging on my wall right now. Some of you might have seen it. I've posted pictures. Check your Twitter. Check my Twitter. Good to see you, my friend. Beetle 911 in the house. Allied Darkness is here. King Azza. We got William Cullen. We got Ramit Tanaja. Maybe Uncle Howdy can be feature in Royal Rumble 2023. Maybe not the Royal Rumble match, but I definitely think we're seeing Uncle Howdy in the mellow yellow, bright white light match for sure. Andy Linnell is in the house. Good to see you. Who else is here? Stone Cold is here. MH Nova. 30 men and women superstars will go at it in 2 Royal Rumble matches. It's time to rumble. It's time for the Royal Rumble. Vince Voice. Grand Prix Fisherman. I used to drive a Pontiac Grand Prix back in the day. 2002, leather seats, 4-door. Shit was fast, man. Pontiacs, good old Pontiacs. Jay Lambo, Alan Barkley in the house as well. Sonic Plays is here. White Mamba. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, Black Mamba. 3 years ago today, we lost Kobe Bryant, if you can believe that. And I'll never forget being home. I had just come home from the Jericho Cruise. Our lives were about to change globally with the pandemic. We knew it was coming, but it wasn't here quite yet. And it was the same day as the Royal Rumble, correct? It was Royal Rumble Sunday or Saturday, whatever it was. And that was when the news of Kobe's unfortunate death came in and everybody was freaking out. And of course, his daughter was involved in that. And it still does not feel any less surreal. I cannot believe I'm living in a world where Kobe Bryant is not alive. And then, of course, a couple of weeks ago, we lost Jay Briscoe in another kind of eerily similar type of feeling tragedy in terms of, you hear about him dying and then you hear that his children could be involved, and that whole thing was just unreal. And then that night we had to go into the Royal Rumble and watch one of the greatest returns of all time. And I remember it being a fan, it being so hard for me to balance the emotion of the happiness for Edge, the look on his face when he came out there, but, just that cloud, even though it's a completely different sport, the whole world knows who Kobe Bryant is. And it was just so sad. And I could not get that out of my head. As much as I was really, really trying to enjoy the Royal Rumble, I don't recall. Did we react to that year? We probably did. I don't even remember. As much as I was trying to enjoy it, I couldn't stop thinking about Kobe Bryant. It was really hard to balance all that happiness with that sorrow, and then of course, Edge having to come back on the same day that Kobe dies and then setting up a big WrestleMania match that doesn't even happen in front of fans. It was like, I felt bad for Edge. I felt it was just like bad timing on all fronts. But yeah, today I believe is the 3-year anniversary of the Kobe Bryant death, and White Mamba's name made me think of that. So rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Stephen Harris, Crazy J is also here. 6-foot tree in the house. Brandon McNeil, Jatila, thank you so much for being here. Also, we have JJ Leg chiming in with $2. Appreciate that. Acknowledge your tribal chief. Oh, you're my tribal chief? Well, you know what, JJ? You were the very first person to ever sign up for the memberships. You are the OG channel member. When I read through the memberships and shout outs, you're at the very bottom of the list. First one. So I guess if we are going to have a tribal chief in terms of the members, I guess it needs to be JJ. Acknowledge him. Acknowledge him, y'all. Tiger Claw Gaming, good to see you. I say you book the Bloodline turning on Sammy, give him a brutal beatdown to keep him out of the Rumble and set up Owens, Sammy versus Usos for the tag titles. That's one way to do it. We're going to be talking about all of the different scenarios here. However, I have been on the Owens, Sammy versus Usos bandwagon for the longest time up until recently. I mean, this storyline, I almost think the tag titles are too low for Sammy at this point. With everything going on, the relationship that they've been, and the story they've been telling with him and Roman. Roman even recently kind of for the first time feels like he might be losing his grip a bit on the bloodline, with some members kind of stepping out of line. Jay came in and saved Sammy's ass on Monday, things like that. And this look that Roman has on his face, when Jay's vouching for him and stuff, something's going on there. And I think that at this point, when we heard all the speculation and rumors today, the WWE might be changing gears a little bit, because they have to go, your top angle, your top match for WrestleMania should be your top story. It should be the thing that's the most over on TV. So I think that you actually do have to consider Sami Zayn winning the Royal Rumble. Forget the tag titles. We're talking world title. But I also think it's possible that, Roman could continue to roll, but you've got an opportunity to not only make Sami, but make Owens and Sami. I put this on Twitter today. How cool would this be? Just imagine this scenario. Imagine a WrestleMania 20 scenario with Owens and Sami. Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero hugging, both as world champions, closing out WrestleMania 20. You could theoretically book some sort of a scenario where you could do the same thing with Owens and Zayn. Now, I don't know in terms of, it feels like there's some foreshadowing with them potentially splitting up the tag team titles. It feels like they're going to do that with the world title too. So if they did that, you could have Roman defend the belt on both nights and lose them or something like that. But whatever they do, there's a million different ways you could book it. Could you imagine having Sami and Kevin Owens both holding world championships and embracing on the final night of night 2? What a way, and confetti and the whole deal. What a way to, there's not going to be a dry eye in the room, man, if something like that happens. I would love that. How do you get there? I don't know. There's a million different directions you could go to get to that destination. But if you did something like that, I think that would be really awesome. And I think with WWE, now with Triple H in charge, I think he would be even more likely to pivot, change directions, whatever, if he starts seeing that, hey, I got to go with this, because another thing, I know we all love Cody. So do I. I'm really happy to see Cody back, but we don't want to see Cody get in the situation that Batista was in 2014, because everybody wanted Daniel Bryan to win. And then it turned out to be Batista. And I think the next year it was, Rey Mysterio was the biggest heel because he came out last, or maybe that was the same year. I don't remember, but the fans were very angry, very frustrated because they wanted who they wanted. And I think Sami might have a lot of those Daniel Bryan, characteristics to him in terms of how that angle went back in 2014. And now we're approaching WrestleMania. WWE may have had an idea of where they wanted to go, but now they might be saying to themselves, look, we kind of got to go with Sami. The only way to maybe make a Cody victory okay is to have Sami not even be in the Rumble at all. But if Sami's in the Rumble and he gets eliminated or something, that's going to sour the fans. And if Cody's going to win and he's going to try to have this tearful, emotional celebration, I think there's enough fans that would still be happy to see him win. But I think you'd be playing with fire. I think you would be risking a negative reaction for him. I think you'd be risking fans thinking that it wasn't booked properly. And I think that, I'm reading a tweet. And I think you could potentially have some backlash from that. And the last thing I want to see happen for Cody is that, especially since, they've been hyping up his return and how he went out, his return last year at Mania, the match in Hell in the Cell, the recovery, the return. Fans want to be happy to see him back. So however Triple H decides to book this whole situation, tread carefully, my friend. But we have lots of discussion about WrestleMania later on, Tiger Claw. So just hang tight. We'll be circling back to that. How Weezy does not have to work tomorrow. Good. Friday off for you. I do have to work, but not until the evening. So I'm fine. Tony kind of named Curran. Nice. Nate Burgeon, good to see you. We've got, who else? Brian Spencer is here. Thank you for being here. Who else? I think I got everybody. Leonardo, welcome. All right. So I think that's it for all of the Chris Barrera. Not sure if I got you either. Transferring Heat is here. Don't think I got you either. Maybe I did. I don't remember. I better shut up and start getting into wrestling news now. What do you think? I think it's time. If you guys do me a favor, hit me with that thumbs up button. I would very much appreciate it. We're going to knock out some wrestling news and Royal Rumble predictions, and then we will get into our Q&A portion of the broadcast. So just stay tuned. We'll be back at it here soon for the Q&A. But let's start with some wrestling news, and let's start with last night's Dynamite. They did once again, reach over 1 million viewers. Been a little while since they've done that. I think that's the highest rating they've gotten since somewhere around October. Just over 1 million views for last night's Dynamite, which was headlined by the Jay Lethal and Mark Briscoe Jay Briscoe tribute match, which was a really awesome main event. Can't say enough good things about the show last night. It was really good. They were able to add this match to an already pretty stacked card without having to do too much to the card to change it. We were still able to get all the matches in. Darby Allin had a great TNT title defense against Buddy Matthews. And we also saw Bryan Danielson defeat Brian Cage. Now, Brian Cage, he's currently 1/3 of the 6-man champs in Ring of Honor, I believe, right? His contract with AEW is coming up in the beginning portions of 2023, so it'll be really interesting to see where he goes. I don't know if WWE would have an interest in somebody like him or not. I kind of hope he stays put. The work he's been doing since he's returned to TV has been really good, so hopefully that will be enough to keep him under contract or keep utilizing him in Ring of Honor or AEW. But it was good to see him back on TV last night. Took the loss to Danielson. However, we saw the post-match beatdown where MJF went to work on Bryan, injuring his shoulder. And, of course, he has to win, I believe, all the way up until February 8th if he wants to get that Iron Man match against MJF, which will be at Revolution. So we know that's going to be the case. He was being checked out by the doctor, or by Dr. Sampson after the match, and he kind of cut a promo in the camera saying, "You're not going to stop me." He's going to do whatever he has to do. So basically they are just throwing more hurdles, more obstacles in front of Danielson to where not only does he have to win all of these matches, now he's got to go win the last 2 hurt. So I don't know if I think he's got a match next week and the week after that, and then if he wins, he gets the Iron Man match, right? Well, one of the ideas we were tossing around last night, because I was trying to figure out, okay, we know what's going to happen here. It's very predictable. Danielson, it's not like Danielson's going to go through all this and then he's going to fail to get the match. He's going to get the match at Revolution. So assuming he wins his next 2 on TV or whatever Danielson's got to do, he does that. He earns the match. Then you got a couple of weeks of build until you get to Revolution. So you do the Iron Man match, and what I proposed on Wednesday night is that if you can get yourselves in a situation where it's tied, or better yet, MJF is down 1. Let's say it's 1-0. Okay, let's say Danielson's beat him once or whatever, and it's only 1-0. I think it would be fun to see more falls than that, but I almost think it would be even more fun if like MJF can't get a fall on Danielson or something, but who knows what the score could be. At the end, Danielson is up 1 with like 10 seconds left in the match or something like that, and it's clear that MJF is not going to win. MJF should pay somebody, and that's why I think it would be such great heel heat, because MJF made Danielson jump through all these hurdles. Danielson had to like literally shave years off of his career to get through these grueling matches just to get to this match against MJF. They work for an hour. He wrestles his ass off only for the most ridiculous thing to squash his dreams. And MJF could pay somebody like Big Bill or anybody to come in and attack him. I'm going to pay you, if I'm down by 1, come in the ring and attack me. Just attack me, start beating the shit out of me. Because the referee will ring the bell, disqualify Bryan Danielson, evening up the score at a tie as the clock runs out. And since Adam Pearce isn't the GM here, I can just go to the back because the tie goes to the runner, tie goes to the champion, and I remain AEW champion without even having to win a fall over Danielson. And you go through all that trouble, all that energy, all that effort, give us that great match for a cheap ending like that, and for the heel to figure out a way out of it, because MJF's character kind of dictates that he should have some crazy plan to get an extra advantage in the Iron Man match. I even mentioned maybe chloroforming Danielson and then just drag him in the ring and just pinning him one after another, getting a 6-0 lead on Danielson, and then he's got to fight from behind. Or maybe doing it in a way where he's able to do something shady that gets him like a 3-fall lead. I don't know how he does that. Just does something dishonestly that gives him a huge lead, and then Danielson's got to battle back and then just falls just short. But at the end of the day, I don't think MJF is going to be dropping the title in his first title defense, because he has not even had a match since winning that title. Am I right about that? I don't remember the last time MJF's even been in the ring, so he's kind of he's roaming over there. So That's kind of the way I think it would go or could go. But I think whatever they do in the Iron Man match, MJF should have a really, really dirty trick up his sleeve, a trick that's so dirty it pisses the fans off, makes them feel robbed or cheapened or something like that. Because I love that. I love it when fans get all upset because that just adds a ton of heat. Next thing you know, MJF's all of a sudden not going to be as good on the mic anymore. That's what they're going to start saying. Oh, he's not that good, because they'll be so mad. Now they're going to start finding reasons to hate him. And I really like watching that stuff because it's fun to me. So maybe they can do something there. But Dynamite was great last night. And like I said, they headlined with Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal, which I'm really glad they made that the main event because it really needed to be. That wasn't something you could stick in the middle of the show. And it was super emotional. I mean, you could even see it on Jay Lethal last night. He wasn't even able to get through his entrances or the introductions. He was just weeping the whole time, and you could see he had to basically suck it up to get focused for that lockup. And Mark Briscoe, same thing. I was talking about how I'm just amazed and how he was able to make this appearance and do this match just 1 week after the death, knowing the type of day he's going to have backstage, the people he's going to talk to, the tears that are going to be shed, the condolences and the sorrow and all that stuff going on. And then you got to ready yourself mentally to go in the ring and have a match, a crazy match where he's doing top rope elbows through tables and shit. I just was admired the hell out of both of those guys to be able to pull themselves together, especially Mark, enough to do that. And the match was way better than I thought it needed to be or would be, especially with some of the spots they were doing. And that's because it was for Jay. And it reminded me a lot of Bret Hart and Chris Benoit's Owen Hart tribute match from years ago when Nitro was in Kemper Arena. And they did the match with Bret and Benoit. And Bret had said himself, he goes, there's an audience of one for this match. We're having this match for one person. There's nobody in the arena. It's just Owen watching us. And that's kind of the way he approached it. And this was probably the same way, although I don't know if this match was for Jay and Jay alone, because Jay had a locker room full of friends back there. And after the match, when Mark came to the stage, and just to see the roster members, Adam Cole, Adam Page, not a dry eye up there, the hugs that were some of them were giving him was just rough. So, I mean, just being backstage and watching that match on the monitor was probably emotional enough for a lot of those people that knew Jay and worked with him and knew him well and traveled with him or whatever, or knew his family. That's just unreal. So props to Mark for being able to do that. And he even, somebody ran into him at the airport. There's some video of Mark coming home from Dynamite where he said some really nice words about the match and his brother, and, that he's going to carry on the family name. And it was beautiful. AEW deserves a lot of credit. Tony Khan especially for going to bat and really working hard to get this tribute done. Warner Brothers Discovery reversing their ridiculous stance that they had prior to this, not allowing the Briscoes to be featured. So Tony Khan deserves a lot of credit for playing hardball. You're doing business with these people, and Warner Brothers Discovery is a mess right now as it is internally, it sounds like. So I'm glad that Tony Khan was like, no, this is fucking bullshit. We need to tribute this guy. And now it sounds like that Mark Briscoe has been given the green light to be featured on AEW TV going forward. So it would really be cool if we see him again. But the fact that they were able to get that done and put that match on the main event was really, really, really nice. And I think that AEW has handled, the Brody Lee situation and the Jay Briscoe situation with the utmost class. And I'm just glad that they were able to do this tribute for Jay. Now, apparently the Ring of Honor tribute that they filmed last week after Dynamite, that has been posted. That's on YouTube, I think. I have not seen it yet, but they have posted that up there. So I know there was a couple of pretty emotional moments on that as well. But in terms of what we saw on Wednesday or last night, I thought it was just really, really well done tribute. And it was emotional and it was rough, but I think it was also really helpful for the roster and everybody that knew Jay, and his family is still, dealing with a lot. His wife did post a picture a couple of days ago of the two daughters in their hospital beds. They're kind of holding hands. They got neck braces and a lot of stuff going on and tubes and all of that. But, they have a lot of recovery ahead of them. And that was just such a heartbreaking picture to see. It was like a combination of like heartwarming and heartbreaking, because it's good to see them together, but you got to wonder, what's going on in their head. They're just kids. They can't understand regular life, much less, this insanity that's happened to them. They're laid up with months and months, God knows how long, lifetime of recovery, might never be the same from these accidents. Plus you have to carry the weight of knowing your dad died that day, and they have to live with this shit for the rest of their lives, and their children, they potentially have 60 to 80 years left to live to carry this around. And it's just cruel and fucked up. And that's why life just sucks sometimes. But at least in terms of what wrestling was able to do for Jay, he was able to be tributed the proper way. And I thought it was really great how AEW handled that last night. So nothing but great things to say, and respect for AEW for how they handled that. So good Dynamite last night. Really happy that they were able to pull in a decent rating for Wednesday Night Briscoe because they should have, and it was touching. Anyway, speaking of AEW, they announced today that they have signed a multi-year exclusive broadcasting deal with, I don't know if these are initials or if this is a word. What is DAZN? Is it DAZN, or is it DAZN, or is it DAZN? But DAZN is the leading sports platform in Europe, I believe, right? Do I have that right? So AEW has announced multi-year exclusive deal with them to show Dynamite, Rampage, Battle of the Belts, Dark Elevation, and 4 pay-per-views a year. So that's pretty good for them in Europe, and hopefully they get some sort of deal similar over here, HBO Max, Paramount, anywhere where we can see AEW and we can get the pay-per-views, we can get the Dynamites. That will be pretty awesome. But at least for overseas, this sounds like a pretty good deal, and I'm happy and excited for everybody over there who can now access AEW through this platform. Unfortunately, I'm just a dumb American, and I don't know anything about DAZN. So if you guys do, please let me know in the chat. Let's talk Raw. Raw, Monday night. Sorry, drop something. Raw this past Monday night, 2.4 million viewers. Holy shit, man. I think the first segment there with the tribal court did like 2.6. It's not bad. That's not bad for today and today's shit ratings. And you can see what a difference, Raw makes when it's not going head to head with Monday Night Football. But also, this was Raw 30. They did a very, very good job of hyping and advertising the show. And of course, they had big segments planned with the tribal court. They had some segments scrapped, and they had some segments changed midnight, or mid-show, I should say, on Monday night as well. Overall, I think we did enjoy the show. There were some positives. I thought the tribal court was unbelievably well done to the point where I don't mind that it ran over. Some of the issues we're going to see later was due to that running long, but sometimes you got to run shit long if shit's working, and they had to tell that story, and it was so great with Jay coming in and saving Sammy at the last minute when you thought that was going to be it, buying him some more time. He lives to fight another day. That whole thing was really, really, really well done. Another positive on Monday Night Raw was the better use of the legends, because a lot of times on these dumb Raw shows, the legends are just brought out there to just be done, just to be used in silly segments. Silly segments are fine as long as everything they do aren't silly segments. And there was a lot of years there where they would bring all these legends in for whatever kind of show, reunion show or whatever. And by the end of it, we were like, what was the point of them even being here? Did we even need that? So I always wish that they would just find better use of the legends to where maybe they can give somebody a rub, not just having a bunch of legends beat up a heel. I'm saying give them an actual rub. And they did that twice on Monday. First with DX and their whole promo. We just had a DX reunion not long ago because we were talking about Billy Gunn potentially joining that. And they did the big DX thing at Raw 25. So we didn't really need this DX reunion because it's not something we really need, but it was Raw 30. So any of these nostalgia acts, I'm not going to flip out and say, oh, WWE relies too much on the legends. They sometimes do, but Vince McMahon is gone now, so I don't think we have to worry about that too much. And when it comes to these big anniversary shows, I kind of expect some legends there. I want nostalgia. I want legends. I want them involved in these big anniversary shows. I don't want them involved every time or in every Raw every week. I don't want them being the sole focus of WrestleManias anymore or anything like that. But in terms of them having a presence on shows like this, sure. Greg's got no issue with that at all. And I was really happy with how they were used this time. And this time having DX do a segment with Imperium, but instead of DX humiliating Imperium, DX backed down. Not one member of DX, Triple H, Shawn, X-Pac, nobody wanted anything to do with Gunther. Not even Triple H. And Triple H said, yeah, I'm retired, man. I don't want anything to do with this. Same with Shawn. They were all passing the buck to the other, and that's so much better because maybe 3 years ago, they would have all jumped on Imperium and Walter would have eaten a pedigree, and we don't want to see that. So I thought that was a positive. Hogan coming out in the beginning, I don't need Hogan. I don't ever need to see Hulk Hogan's face again as a wrestling fan. Don't need it. He does nothing for me. However, I did love that his mic cut out. That was very, very entertaining. Ric Flair was also there, stumbling and sauntering around backstage. Apparently, he did issue an apology to Becky Lynch for some of his past behavior, which is fine. That's what Ric Flair should do. He was kind of an asshole the other day on his podcast where he was giving shit to Takeshita for his chops, to which very loud horn out there, to which Takeshita was very respectful. Yes, sir, Mr. Flair, I will work on it. I will do better. And I'm like, dude, you don't owe this old fart anything. Fuck him. This senile 150-year-old dirtbag tried to have a match just a couple of months ago, and he's going to criticize your in-ring work? The dude couldn't move, walk, breathe, or do anything in that match. It was the most uncomfortable, most fucked up looking shit we've ever seen. Did not look real, did not look like a sport. He set the business back a fucking 100 years with that performance, and he's going to criticize somebody else? It's the hypocrisy of Ric Flair that just sometimes drives me nuts. But anyway, fuck Ric Flair. And he was also on Raw doing shit, didn't care, and he was dressed like a complete idiot. We also saw Brock's return on the show. Very, very predictable. We predict Brock interfering in the Lashley Theory match a week prior, as soon as it was made. Because they began the Brock and Lashley angle. That issue has started. It's the beginning of the year. Royal Rumble's on the horizon. Raw 30 is on Monday, and you got every legend and every star in the world booked for the show. Brock will be here. Brock will definitely be here. And he was, because I didn't think they were going to take the belt off of Theory, but you don't want to really beat Theory clean. You don't want to have Theory beat Lashley either. So Brock comes out, costs Lashley the match, and now you can do Brock and Lashley. Now, I kind of thought all along, dating back to last month, that they were building to a Brock and Lashley match at the Rumble. But apparently that's not what they're going to do. We only have 3 matches other than the 2 Royal Rumble matches booked, unless they add something last minute tomorrow on SmackDown, which they could. But right now it looks like Lashley and Brock might just be in the Royal Rumble, and I kind of feel like they might do a deal where they cancel each other out, because if they're going to do a match at WrestleMania between these two, I want it to be Hell in a Cell. I think Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley in a Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania is the way to go. So what I would do for the Royal Rumble is I would have Lashley eliminate Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar has already fucked Lashley out of the U.S. title twice, right? So what are you going to do? Have Brock Lesnar show up on TV, beat up Bobby Lashley, and screw him out of titles in every interaction they have, and then when they have the match, Brock beats him too? Is that what we're doing? Hopefully not. I think if we're going to have a Hell in a Cell match between these two guys, I think Brock will probably go over. And if that's the case, you got to give Lashley something in the build to that, right? So I think maybe Lesnar eliminates Lashley from the Rumble, but Lashley comes back in and eliminates Brock illegally, right? Well, are they both baby faces? What the fuck's going on here? It's going to be something like that. I think Lashley and Lesnar shoot an angle in the Rumble match where they fuck each other out of the victory. Lashley screws over Brock or vice versa. I think it would be great if Brock was like one of the final guys and Lashley showed up and pulled him out. Remember when Hogan pulled out Sid in 92? Like something like that is what I would do for Lesnar and Lashley at the Rumble. But we'll talk more about that. So on Monday, you saw Theory retain in the predictable scenario of Brock coming out and costing Lashley the match. So now we just have to figure out what they're going to do with these two at the Rumble and potentially at WrestleMania. But I'm really hoping for that Hell in the Cell. I think if they were going to put Lashley and Brock on the Rumble card, we would have heard that announcement on Monday or on social media this week. I don't think that's something they would announce on SmackDown tomorrow, but we could hear of potentially a women's title match. I don't know what the hell Charlotte is going to do with the Royal Rumble. She's either going to be off this show or she's going to be in the Rumble as champion. And that could be weird. I don't know. Speaking of women, there were some issues with Raw, of course, this past week. The Tribal Court segment that opened the show went long. We all know that, right? So it went long. And to make up for that time, they cut the cage match between Becky and Bayley. But they didn't just cut the match. They actually went through the motions. They lowered the cage. They did the entrances. And I'm like, if you had time to do all of that, why didn't you have time to have like a 7 or 8 minute match? You know, like if they had time to lower the cage, do the entrances, do the beatdown, it feels like all you needed was 10 more minutes of extra time there. And I think it was weird when, you know, we talked about the Imperium DX segment earlier. What did that lead to? That led to an impromptu tag match with Street Profits and Seth Rollins coming out. So that was an unannounced match. That match was fun. It was good. Always great to see Seth. Always great to see the Profits. But did we need it? No, we didn't need it. The cage match we needed. The cage match you built your show on. There was only 2 matches, right, for this entire show announced. It was Theory and Lashley and the cage, Becky and Bayley. So the fact that they cut that instead of cutting something else, you could have still done the DX segment with Imperium, maybe just no match. Or cut something. What other match did they have on Monday night that we could have completely done without? I know there was a lot of other stuff going on, so you didn't have quite as much filler as you normally do on a Monday, but you still had plenty of areas where shave 2 minutes off here, 2 minutes off here, 2 minutes off here, give Becky and Bayley an extra 8 minutes on top of what you've booked in the beatdown, and you would have had time to do the match. You could have done one of the entrances during commercial to save yourself another 3 minutes, that sort of thing. So I think it was actually pretty poor time management by Triple H. I think Tony Khan had him beat this week. Tony Khan already had his card set for Dynamite, and then he added Jay Briscoe and, I'm sorry, Mark, I keep saying because Jay Lethal's in this match, Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal. He was able to add that match without affecting the rest of the card at all. He just, you know, figured it out, where Triple H kind of made the wrong decision. I think that was a wrong decision made by Triple H because it got a lot of fans talking. Like, what the hell? Of all matches to cut, that's the match you choose? How about cut your own fucking segment instead of these women who you guys have been advertising all week? So at the end of the day, is it a big deal? No, because Bayley and Becky, who cares? They can pay off this cage match anytime. They can do it this week if they want, whenever, is no big deal. But it was just an interesting decision, why they went with that call and why they decided to cut that match. Now, the Bella twins have also been a little bit vocal. They both were originally advertised for the show. I swear I saw them on WWE graphics. I even put them on my thumbnail at first before changing it. Also, I mistakenly, so embarrassing, I mistakenly thought on Monday that Lita was going to be the special guest referee for the Bayley and Becky cage match because I forget her name, Stephanie something, had posted a graphic of having Lita as the ref, but apparently it was just an idea. So I think what happened is that I was just kind of scrolling through Twitter. I saw that graphic and didn't really think anything of it because it's not far-fetched. It's completely plausible that WWE would bring Lita in. She's done things with WWE in recent months and years. She has a good relationship with them. And it's right in line with what they would do. She's a legend. It's Raw 30, special guest referee. We saw Kurt Angle as a special guest referee, remember? So when I saw it, I think I assumed it was a WWE official graphic, and it didn't even occur to me to double check that. So I had Lita on the thumbnail, and we start the cage match on Monday, and I'm like, where's Lita? And everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm like, where's Lita? I think I was talking about it on Saturday, too, on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, Lita is going to be the special referee. And a few people are like, are you sure? So my bad on that one. That was just me not doing my due diligence. I assumed that graphic that I saw was real. I was probably just scrolling quickly, saw it for 2 seconds, and just kept going and didn't even think twice about it or to question it or to think that it wasn't real. So that's really funny that I made that mistake. But speaking of the women, the Bellas, like I said, they had some things to say. They did I don't know if it was just a video they posted on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, where the two of them were talking about the women's representation on Raw 30. And there was definitely a lack of women. I criticized having Alundra Blaze. We love Medusa, but is she really a Raw legend? She was there for such a short amount of time, and she disgraced the WWE's championship belt on their rival show. And there's been so many more women that had made a much bigger mark and left a bigger mark than her. especially in the later years. And this time around, we didn't see any Kelly Kellys or Candaces or any of the women from that time period. We saw no Edge. We saw no Beth Phoenix, although I think they might both be at the Rumble. So there was a little bit of a lack of that representation. And the Bellas had both kind of in that video were basically hinting that the reason was WWE doesn't want to show certain people. Now, they did show that Sasha and Charlotte match, but they kind of mentioned they don't want to show Sasha. And they were right in what they said, but it's like I keep seeing these commercials for Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella says I do. A four-part E-series on this girl's wedding. Who fucking cares about your wedding? You need 4 parts for that? Who watches this shit? Who is so dialed into Nikki Bella's life that you need to watch a 4-part series on a goddamn wedding? So it's really hard for me to agree with people like that, even though the Bellas are 100% right. They are. There should have been better women's representation on that show, especially with some of those legends. And you combine that with them cutting the women's cage match. I don't know if it was meant to be, they wouldn't have done that to the men. I don't want to get into that. I don't know if that was the thought process. Triple H is like, I need some extra time. Let's fuck over the women. I don't think it was that. I think it was something else. Hey, we could just go do a beatdown and do it next week, and we don't have to compromise anything else on the show. I don't think it was intentional to slight the women. It just worked out that way. And then when you combine that with the lack of women's legends that were featured on the show, it got WWE a little heat, rightfully so, but hopefully they can make up for it with one hell of a Royal Rumble on Saturday, and we still have SmackDown tomorrow. And who knows what they can do with Bayley and Becky to make that right. I think Triple H will. I don't think Triple H is fucking stupid. I think he'll understand and hear that criticism and do something with the two of them on Monday or at the earliest possible date that he can to make that situation right for the fans, or maybe, feature some other women or whatever. But the Bellas had some things to say. I think they followed up with another Instagram story or whatever, where they tried to clarify or maybe backpedal a little bit, but they were kind of right in what they were saying in terms of WWE just being WWE. But what was funny is that the Bellas weren't telling us anything about WWE that we're not aware of. This has all been shit they've been guilty of doing forever. Just look at the Hall of Fame. Look at how many years the Hall of Fame has been in existence now. And the entire thing is bullshit. The entire thing is just who WWE has a good relationship with and who they don't, and who they decide to put in the Hall of Fame. There's no voting. There's no rhyme or reason. Some people WWE just doesn't want to mention. As you notice on their big Raw history video package, there was AEW talent on there. There was The Big Show. There was Danielson. There was Jericho. But there was no Phil Brooks at all, which is amazing because you would think they would almost feature him to maybe get the fans talking. Oh shit, WWE featured him. He might be coming back. I don't know. But that pipe bomb was a big part of Raw's history. Granted, it was recent history, and anything that happened after 2008 is kind of all a blur to me. But that was a big moment in Raw's history. And the fact that there was no sign of that in the video package definitely speaks to the pettiness that WWE has. They have always been like this. Always. Back in the day, before many of you were born and watching wrestling, and there was and WCW started stealing all the stars, the way WWE would basically just forget any of these people existed was hilarious. Vince called the NWO. I think it's funny because how people joke that AEW is just a t-shirt company. Vince called the NWO a clothing line on Raw one time. He's not to be confused with the clothing line NWO, a clothing line. Like he just couldn't admit, that there was somebody else out there doing the same shit as him. And I don't think it's that bad in WWE now, but they do have their internal or personal reasons as why they are not featuring somebody in video packages. And to be honest, that's WWE's call. There might be reasons for that, but it definitely felt like less women's representation on this show when there really shouldn't have been. The women have really turned the corner in the past few years, even during the years that I didn't really love the women's division. The Kelly and Alicia Foxes and Tori Wilsons, all those ones. They just weren't really good to me. I like Molly. I like Victoria. Of course, I like Trish. I like Lita. Some of the women, Gail Kim, some women there could work. They could go. But for the most part, I just wasn't a fan of that era of diva, but they still left their mark. And I think what started that change was the Bella twins, even though, they just came in as two stupidly hot identical twins. They were able to become pretty decent wrestlers. And by the time Nikki Bella retired, I felt like Nikki Bella was a wrestler. She had the look down. She had greatly improved in the ring. She had some good matches on TV. She passed the torch over to Charlotte and, kind of ended the Divas division, but kind of came back and had that match with Rousey. And by the time she left, she had the look down. She looked great with her thing and her thing tied and her backwards hat. And she was, got a little bigger and she was stronger. And I felt her as a wrestler. She didn't make the transition to me quite as well as like somebody like Trish did, but I felt like I could accept Nikki Bella as a pro wrestler by the time they were done. And I didn't think I was going to be able to take either one of them seriously for a lot of years there. I've met Nikki Bella a couple times. She's came into my restaurant, talked to her at the airport one time. I like them both. I think they're great people, but it's just like, I didn't feel them as wrestlers. And then Brie had that match with Stephanie and she was able to get herself kind of over. So they do deserve some credit for that, even though I think it's ridiculous that somebody needs a 4-part TV series on their wedding. That's just too much attention. Too much attention. Nobody needs that much attention. That's just a fucking ego feeder right there. But anyway, they had some things to say and they weren't at all wrong. PW Insider has reported that Vince McMahon has been spotted this week back at Titan Tower. That's not that big of a shock to me. I don't know why that's news. If Vince is back to oversee a potential sale, wouldn't he be there? Isn't that where he would be? I guess he could do it all from home, I suppose. I thought they were... Have they made the move into their new headquarters? I thought they had. I thought that transition was currently happening, but maybe everybody is still back at the Stamford office. The transition hasn't completely happened yet. I'm not even sure what the deal with that is, but I would assume if Vince McMahon is going to be an integral part in selling or exploring strategic alternatives, as they like to call it, then I would expect him to be at WWE headquarters. So I'm not freaking out yet. I think fans get way ahead of themselves sometimes. And I joked about this on Twitter. I said, what sucks for Triple H is that every time he makes a questionable decision, a questionable booking decision, the fans who can't think are going to immediately go straight to Armageddon. There's no in between. There's no critical thought. There's no, okay, what could this mean? It's going to automatically mean every single time, 100 out of 100 times that Triple H makes a questioning booking decision, you're going to see the people on social media say, oh, it's official, Vince McMahon's back, which sucks for Triple H, because that's probably not the case, and fans are going to think it is anyway. So every time something bad happens, oh, he's back now. So I'm sure when the news of Vince being back at the Towers came in today, that you had a bunch of people convinced that he is back in charge of creative as of today. And I just don't think that's the case. I still think he is there to work on the sale. That seems to be priority number one for him. And I don't think, if Vince could force his way back into the company or force his way back into a creative influence, I honestly don't think any of that's going to happen until after a sale anyway. I don't think he's going to be sticking his nose in everything that's going on when they are in the middle of the biggest time in the company's history behind the scenes. They're about to sell off. That should be where 100% of your focus is. So I think that's still the case with Vince. I still think, knowing Vince and knowing how he cannot be trusted, could he find his way back in behind the scenes down the road in the future? Sure. I just don't think it's happening right now. And if somebody wins a match that you think shouldn't have won, that doesn't mean Vince McMahon is back. Deep breaths, deep breaths. Everybody's so angry. I talked about Matt Cardona earlier. Sounds like he has filed trademarks for woo, woo, woo. You know it. So since he has filed that trademark, I don't know if that's necessarily an indication that he's coming back to WWE, because if he was filing the trademark, seems like he's trying to keep that from WWE. I don't know. But I think Cardona is a shoo-in for the Royal Rumble. I would love to see Zack Ryder show up. I'm assuming he would be Zack Ryder. I don't know if he'd come out as Matt Cardona, probably Zack. because we know that Chelsea Green has already been re-signed to the company, right? She's back. She's ready to go. We should see her any day, and she will probably also make an appearance in the Rumble. I don't know what kind of a reaction Chelsea Green will get. She's not going to blow the roof off the place as some big mega surprise, but she will still be a fun surprise and one that I think will get, get some sort of a reaction. But Zack Ryder will get a huge reaction from the audience if he does show up in the Rumble, and I kind of hope that he does. Although with the men, it's a lot different with the women. There's spots to fill with the women. Men's spot, there's only 30 spots available, and you could potentially do a 40-man Rumble with the men. I think there's enough spots in there for enough big names to be involved. But I think he'll be one of the surprises in the Rumble, and we'll talk about all the potential surprises in a minute. I finally got a look. Some of you guys were asking me this weekend, but I was so sick and so under the weather, I hadn't gotten a look at it yet. But I know when they ran Wrestle Kingdom Night 2 the other night, because they showed some highlights of this last night on Dynamite with Sting and Darby Allin teaming up with Muta and stuff to take on Hakushi and a couple of guys, which was an awesome thing for Darby Allin to be a part of. And I wasn't aware of that last night when he was like selling the leg. I didn't know that was left over from the Japan match. But they also had the match on there that pitted the New Japan and Noah champions against each other. And there was this basically shoot angle that took place between Okada and Kaito Kiyomiya. And you see it in the match. And when I first saw it, I'm like, holy shit. And it had me fooled. Okada's got, rest hold or chin lock on somebody. And Kiyomiya comes in from the outside and just straight up kicks him directly in the face. And he just goes back. It just looked like he broke his nose. And down goes Okada. And he fucking goes into killer mode, loses his shit, throws Kiyomiya on the outside of the ring, and just starts fucking him up. I've never seen this emotion in my life out of Okada. And I was completely sold. I'm like, oh, this is great. Because, all the comments were like, holy shit, I've never seen anything. So I'm looking at what he's doing, and I'm like, Kevin Kelly's freaking out on commentary, and I'm like, this is for real, man. Look at them. Look at the shots he's laying in. He is giving this boy a bunch of receipts from hell for this kick to the face. And then Kiyomiya grabs Okada and hits him with a German suplex or something on the outside. I'm like, oh, okay. There's no now that he's given offense, I was like, okay, it is a work, but shit, man, they had me fooled for a second there, and it took Kiyomiya giving some offense to Okada to let me know that everything is okay. So, after the match, you see Okada storm into the back, and he's yelling, he's screaming, and there's just so much emotion. It's like he's come to life, and it was awesome. It was really, really, really well done. So I guess they're going to have this match between the two of them. It's going to come next month on the same night that Keiji Muto was going to have his official last match. So he's had his last singles as Great Muta. He's had his last match in general as Great Muta. Now he's got to have his last match as Muto and back as himself, and that's going to be against Naito next month. And Okada and Kiyomiya is going to be on the same show. So I don't know which match you do the main event there. I guess you kind of have to do Muto as the main event, but that's where that's going to go down. So there's a lot more to the story between those two guys, but I don't follow a ton of Japan anymore. I know there's been a lot of comparisons between them. I know Okada's kind of shit on Kiyomiya a couple times in interviews and stuff, which is kind of fun. And they're doing a pretty good job of, making that feel like a shoot. But finally got to look at all that stuff, and that was wild shit, man. So thank you to everyone who pointed that out to me. So, yo, good mic work. We need you to look at that. I was finally able to look at that, and that was nuts. So that's all I really have written down for news. We'll get into Royal Rumble predictions here now in a second, but let me cruise to the chat, knock out super chats, comments, questions that have been coming in since I've been flapping my gums, see who else is here, that kind of thing. Oh yeah, we got a lot coming in. Nice, pretty decent audience in here for a Thursday night when I normally am not up here. So if you don't mind, can we get me up to like 100 likes in the next couple of seconds here? That would be super. We need like 20 more. Hook me up. Anyway, let's cruise over here to the chat, see what's going on, and then we will predict the Royal Rumble, and then it's going to be question and answer time. All right, who is next? Let's see, where are we at? All right, JJ, I got you. Just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. If I start answering super chats and I miss you, let me know. I will be taking gaps in between answering them, but in terms of right here, let me know. By the way, have you guys seen that picture floating around today of William Regal? William Regal was photograph of William Regal sitting right next to Triple H and Bruce at Gorilla during Raw 30. Just good to see Regal there, just back home, like it's like he took that little detour. I loved Regal in AEW, but I'm happy for him, because that seems where he really, really wants to be. And knowing what he was doing in AEW and, being able to come back home, that's got to be a good feeling, for him. Even if there's no hard feelings with AEW, which I don't think there is, it's just still good to see him back there in an environment that he's probably should have never left, to be honest. So good for Regal. Max Pokebra, thank you very much, my friend, as always, for the $5. I loved when Road Dogg pointed to Kurt Angle when introducing Billy Gunn. Jay and Jimmy should genuinely side with Sammy, and I still like Flair. That's right, Max, you did say that, and I'm fine with that. I like Flair. I like Flair better than Hogan. I watched Ric Flair's entire career. Anything I say about Ric Flair that's negative, I don't say with joy. I say out of frustration as a wrestling fan because it was the same reason I have so much contempt for Hogan is because I want to be more proud of these guys. They had careers that will go down as Babe Ruth level careers in pro wrestling, and how they're handling themselves in their private and personal lives in their retirement I've always felt has been tarnishing both of their legacies greatly just because of their fucked up behavior and how goddamn delusional they are. And that sucks. But that doesn't mean I'm discrediting their careers. It just means that I'm disappointed as a fan because I think people like that should carry themselves better. That's their responsibility to do that. I feel the same way about pro athletes. I get just as mad as pro athletes who are role models for kids, but they act like Johnny Manziel and shit. So I don't really have a whole lot of respect for people who just can't keep their shit together. And I have even less respect for people who can't do it in their old age when they've already had a lifetime to live and they've matured and grown and evolved, and they shouldn't have problems with like maturity issues. That's something you expect from young people. These guys are older and wiser now. They've seen everything. They've traveled the world. They've worked with every type of wrestler in multiple different eras. They have so much knowledge, so much wisdom, so much experience, and they act like idiots. And I think that's always my problem with Flair. But it does not mean that I discredit his career in any way whatsoever. Just maybe don't like who he is as a person and would not want to sit in a bar and drink with Flair because I'd be embarrassed because he's such a fucking nut. But Kurt Angle coming out, though, with DX was one of my favorite parts of Monday Night Raw, the badass Billy Angle. And I thought that was cool because Kurt was the honorary member of the Shield that night when everybody got the mumps, remember? So who else can Kurt Angle join? What other faction can he join? I think he should join Toxic Attraction. I think he'd be perfect if he was the replacement for Mandy Rose. Put a wig on him and a bustier, he'd probably fucking pull it off, that Kurt Angle, I'll tell you. But that was good stuff. I do like your idea of Jay and Jimmy siding with Sammy, because another thing you have to wonder is we've all been assuming that the entire bloodline is going to kill Sammy mob style. But WWE has been dropping hints that there's more dissension. I mean, there's always been issues with Jay and Roman. Jimmy and Roman too. When Jimmy first came back, Jay and Roman had some battles a couple of years ago, if you don't recall. And I would love to see Jay, because I've always thought Jay's gonna. This is just temporary. Like Jay's siding with Sammy is either a ruse or a ploy, or he's gonna change his mind again. I didn't feel like it was gonna be permanent, but what if it was? What if Sami Zayn really did do enough to convince Jay, that he's worthy, of Jay's friendship or your alliance or whatever. And if Jay winds up siding with Sammy over that, or if there's some issue, Sammy wins the Royal Rumble and then there's a segment on Raw where Roman is basically telling Sammy, you're going to have to do the job for me or whatever. And then it's Roman on one side and Sammy on the other and the bloodline in the middle. And they have to decide which side to go on. And Jay might take a step back. Maybe Jimmy's with Roman, Jay's with Sammy, and that could cause some problems for the tag champs. There's a lot of things they could do, and that's what's most fun about this angle, and I just hope that the payoff is as good as we are all hoping it will be. But Max, that could all work, man. That could all work. Tiger Claw Gaming, nice for Triple H to make sure all his buddies got on TV. That's what I'm actually defending. I know that legends can get old, but this was Raw 30. I'm okay with them making sure that the legends that they flew in special had their segment. I think it's the match that they could have cut short, or they could have shaved 2 minutes off the promo. You know, they could have taken away an entrance. There's a lot of things I think they could have done to give those women the time. And they didn't. But I don't really think it's a matter of making sure the legends are on the show, because one thing I didn't mention about Raw was how great that Undertaker and Bray Wyatt segment was. You know, where Undertaker whispered that into his ear and came out as the American badass, and it was almost like kind of a torch passing moment that could go down as very, very important. And that's why I thought WWE deserved credit for the use of legends on this show, because they utilized them better. They didn't just have them out there just to parade them out there. They actually had a use, and they were able to kind of get current talent over in the process. So I don't have a problem with legends being on a 30th anniversary show. I think there's other things they could have cut that still would have been able to give the women time. You know what I mean? So I really don't have an issue with that. Now, Tiger Claw had this exact same scenario taking place on a regular Raw. Just a regular old middle of the year Raw, and they've been building up and advertising a cage match for a week, and they bump it because something went long, and then they still brought legends out there. Then I'm all about that. Then I'm like, well, that's really stupid. But for the 30th show, you kind of expect nostalgia segments, and I got no issue with it. Who needs to see Road Dogg? Yeah, me neither. What did they call him? What did they call Road Dogg? Oh, they called him Butterbean. Oh, by the way, and Raw this past week was in Philly at the Wells Fargo Center, which used to be the Wachovia Center, which used to be the First Union Center, which was the site of WrestleMania 15, a show that I attended live that had Bart Gunn take on Butterbean, got his ass knocked out. And ironically enough, this year's WrestleMania will be the first WrestleMania I've attended since that one. I had a 24-year gap in between WrestleManias. And I've still never been to a Royal Rumble. What I'm waiting for is for the Rumble to come to Vegas or Phoenix or LA. If it comes to Vegas, Phoenix, or LA, I'll be there for sure. Otherwise, I'm going to have to fly, and I'm not trying to fly if I don't have to. Let me see. Bella Twins to AEW confirmed. Well, one of them's husband's there, so that could work. Adam Cole and Britt Baker versus Brie and Daniel Bryan. Okay. Stone Cold 2X. Sorry, I'm reading some of these non-super chat questions or comments because they're good. Gerald Murphy, the tag team title match was announced beforehand. I'm not sure what you're referring to. You might be referring to Raw. I was talking about the 6-man, the one with Rollins and Profits against Imperium. That's the match I feel like they could have shaved time off of. So, but I don't recall. You might be talking about something else. Just clarifying that in case I didn't say that clearly enough. Tony Khan, I hope the Khans buy WWE this year. McMahon is already having more than one lawsuit after another that I didn't read on the latest one. I didn't even put that in my notes for news today, because there's going to be a lawsuit every day. What's the latest one? I mean, I can't keep track of Vince's lawsuits. Let me just put it in my book. Let me put this on page 35. Vince's latest fucking lawsuit. In terms of the Khans buying WWE, we talked a lot about that when the Khans were rumored to be buyers. I don't think they're likely buyers. It does look like right now that Comcast is kind of the leading candidate, and I think that's fine in terms of synergy for the fans. It would probably keep WWE on Peacock. They would not leave USA. But who knows? I don't think the Khans is a good idea for the sake of avoiding a wrestling monopoly. But I also think the WWE could wind up in worse hands. And when I say worse hands, if you sell to a Comcast or a Disney, that's what happened to WCW. You know, the person that loved it, the person that kind of was the reason it was created or the reason it was there was no longer a factor or had an authority in the situation. And so wrestling took a back seat. Instead of Ted Turner saying, I want to spend whatever we can to compete with WWE, you had a bunch of executives that didn't even want the property. So I don't want WWE to fall into hands like that. So even though the Khan's owning would mean that wrestling is under one umbrella again, at least it would be in the hands of owners, and it would be privately owned. It would be the Khans owning it. Tony Khan loves wrestling. He started AEW because of being a fan of WWE. So for him to own it, I would feel comfortable in terms of the stability and being in the hands of somebody who has mountains of money. Granted, I think the Khans said they would explore bringing in financial partners to acquire WWE if it came to that. But I think you could do worse, basically, than the Khans. The tribalists, oh my God, Vince would never sell it to that. It's all about making sure you're preserving WWE for the future. And I honestly, I would trust the Khans more than Disney in terms of making sure that wrestling is important to them. And but then again, like I said before, we just left a 20-plus year monopoly with WWE owning the entire wrestling world, and it really making the product boring and stale and not as fun and all of that. It really, really suffered. The last thing we need as wrestling fans is to return to that. But what might be even worse is if WWE were to sell off to somebody who, doesn't have the best interests of WWE's future in mind, or, if they replace people in power with people who have no wrestling. I don't want WWE to have a Jim Herd. You know what I mean? So that type of thing is what I worry about. But like I said, this whole time, with Nick Khan and Vince McMahon behind the scenes, I would think that Vince just would not pour his heart and soul and dedicate his entire life to building this company just to sell it off to anybody, the highest bidder, and doesn't care what the future holds for that company. I mean, has he really changed that much that now it's all about the shareholders and nothing else? We don't matter anymore. It's just them, So I worry, what's Vince's frame of mind? Is he going to take the highest bidder and just call it a day? Or are they taking steps to ensure that whoever WWE sells to, you still have Stephanie and Triple H and creative people in charge and that type of thing. So the sale scares me. The sale scares me a lot. I don't know what the future holds. Anyway, Stone Cold 10X, I owe you a shout out. Thank you for the $2. I'll be at Royal Rumble. So excited. That's awesome, dude. I have still yet to go to one. I want to be in the audience when they count down from 10. That's really awesome. Have fun at the Rumble. Cool Sauce says they also didn't show Jeff Hardy's Swanton bomb off the stage. Oh yeah, I remember that. I don't know if that's really something to read into. You got to remember, Raw is 30 years old. There's a lot of moments that they could have left off. They kind of just pick them at random sometimes, I think. You can't fit it all into a 3-minute video package, even no matter how hard you try. But I wouldn't read too much into that with Jeff. Max, thanks for 2 more from you. Drew should have won the title at Clash at the Castle. I think I predicted him to. When I did my predictions for that show, I think I thought that he should win. And it's a shame for Drew. I feel like they could still do something with him. I've been saying lately that to me it feels like McIntyre and Sheamus are going to win the tag team titles together, but maybe not unless they make Sheamus a double champion, because it really feels like they are going to perhaps go with match number 3 at WrestleMania between Sheamus and Gunther. And I'd love to see Gunther work Brock or something, but I think Brock is going to work Lashley in the Hell in the Cell. That's my prediction. So maybe you do the 3rd match with Gunther and Sheamus, and this time Sheamus gets the win. And there would really be nothing wrong with that. I think Gunther's great. I think Gunther has got enormous potential to be a main eventer. I don't think a loss to Sheamus at WrestleMania, a badass like Sheamus, would really do anything to harm the roster spot of a Gunther. I think he could easily survive that loss and still be just as Gunther-y as he ever was. So I feel like that's the direction they're going to go in with Sheamus, and I think they should. I think Sheamus should win the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. I just hate that the Intercontinental title looks the way it does. I hate that fucking design so bad. If we can put that sumbitch right there on Sheamus's white pasty-ass skin, oh, that would look so good on him. So I think Sheamus deserves it. He's been incredible the last couple of years. a whole new respect for him as a performer, maybe like in the last 5 years, and especially in the last 2, and just really think Sheamus is awesome. So I think they should go in that direction. If they still want to put the tag belts on him and Drew, I think that would be great for the two of them. Maybe you could make Sheamus a double champion at WrestleMania. He could go into the match with Gunther already as the tag champs, one half of the tag champs, and he wins the IC. You could do that, but I don't really know what else you do with Drew at this point. But I kind of thought the two of them as tag champs would be kind of fun on SmackDown, but now I'm not quite sure if that's what's going to happen at the end of this tag title tournament that I'm assuming Drew and Sheamus is going to win. So we will see. Who cares about Jeff Hardy? I care about Jeff Hardy. North Carolina boy. I saw the Hardy Boys when they were kids. I saw the Hardy Boys win their first ever tag team championships live in the building. I've met them both. The Hardy Boys are awesome. I care about them. I've even met their dad, Tiger Claw. There will be no Jeff Hardy disparaging in this chat. What are you, nuts? Spaz Phoenix, appreciate the $10. Hey, Greg and chat. Double plug. On the wrestling side, I got a Rumble preview. On the movie side, I got a trailer reaction for the movie 65. Both up tomorrow morning. Happy Rumble. Rest in peace, Jay Briscoe. Every time Spaz mentions movies he's reviewing, I've never heard of them. So I don't know what 65 is. You said you were reviewing something else the other day. I think you said Megan, and I finally did see like a trailer. Is that some show where like she's a doll or something? What the fuck? Spaz is always dialed into that shit. Go shoot his YouTube channel some love. Give him a subscription and check out all of his latest content. And I second that. Rest in peace, Jay Briscoe, for sure. No, Bree Mode is not going to run wild on me. Transferring heat out of your mind. Who else we've got? A couple more here coming in. Just make sure I don't miss them. Zane G, appreciate you being here. 4-5 months now. John Cena, number 30 in the Rumble. I think John Cena is going to be at the Rumble. I think he is. I don't know where he's coming in. A lot of good numbers there. We're going to be talking about in a minute some of the surprises, but John Cena, in my mind, could definitely be one of them. Coming in at number 30. I don't know. I feel like if Cena comes in at number 30, how are you going to justify not having him win it? And I don't want him to win it. I don't want John Cena. I love John Cena. You guys know that, but I'm not trying to have him win the Royal Rumble. Him and his bald head. No, not winning it. But Cena, wherever he shows up, I think will get quite the reaction from the crowd. I had pitched a couple of weeks back, maybe last month, a scenario when we were still talking about The Rock. And I said, conceivably, theoretically, you could have The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and John Cena all in the Royal Rumble at the same time. And I think it would be really cool if you had Austin and Rock having a face-off in the ring as the clock ticks down. They're the only two in the ring. Dun, 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 and out comes Cena. And remember WrestleMania 30 where you had like Hogan, Rock, and Austin? This time it's Rock, Austin, Cena. And they're in the Royal Rumble together, and then they just start brawling for a little while. And whoever the next person is, it's got to be somebody like a Santino Marella. It's got to be R-Truth, Tozawa, who is just a really goofy, fucking useless character. I don't want to say that about Tozawa because he's trying to change since the 24/7 days. But who's basically the most useless current men's wrestler on the roster right now? Bring him in. You know, like how Hurricane tried to double choke slam Triple H and Austin at Royal Rumble in like 2002. Do that with somebody and have them come out. Like if James Ellsworth was still in the roster, I'd bring his ass out there. Fucking Reginald, somebody like that. Get him out there for Rock, Cena, and Rock, Austin, and Cena to be surrounding this fucking schmuck. I think it would be great TV, don't you? Give me some suggestions of who that person could be, who that fourth man could be in a Rock, Cena, Austin Rumble brawl. Jordan plays, thank you so much for the $5. I would have Sammy win the Rumble and have Cody win the Elimination Chamber and tie everything together. On a side note, I hope Rick Boogs returns soon. Somebody mentioned Rick Boogs the other night when we were watching maybe Raw. And I laughed because I was like, holy shit, I have completely forgot that Rick Boogs existed. Completely forgot about him. He got injured last year, like WrestleMania or something, right? Blew out his knee. He was doing the deal with Nakamura. I had completely forgotten about him. And that guy is so energetic and has got so much energy and brings so much energy into everything he does. I'm ready for him to come back. So that was a blown out knee, if I'm not mistaken. You would think, timetable wise, he could potentially be back for a return, but I don't follow any of his social media or anything, so I don't, if he's been posting updates and shit like that. He would be a fun guy to return in the Rumble as well. But maybe not to be in, I don't know if there's only 30 spots here, right? And even though Rick Boogs is awesome, I don't know if Rick Boogs is going to generate the type of reaction that would maybe be worthy of a surprise spot. Maybe he just comes out with Nakamura. You know, maybe Nakamura's coming out and then he stops and then he says, and then he introduces Boogs, who starts jamming out on the guitar. Maybe they just do that and he's just there to usher in Nakamura. I don't know, but I could see him being in the Rumble. I wouldn't be against it, that's for sure. In terms of Sammy win the Rumble and Cody will win the Elimination Chamber, that kind of implies that maybe you're thinking of having Roman defend both belts. But I like that idea because I do want the titles, I either want the titles separated or I want them unified into one physical belt. One of those two things. Make up your fucking mind, WWE. If you're going to unify them, because I do think that can be good, having one world championship. But if you want two championships, that just means now there's more championships to give. So if they were going to split the titles again, you got to do it somehow. Some way you're going to have to figure out a way to split them. Hopefully something a little bit more creative than just Adam Pearce coming to the ring and making the announcement. Maybe some sort of weird finish or screwy finish in a match or whatever, or a double Royal Rumble winner or something like that, where maybe Pearce finally gets fed up with the bloodline and then he tells Roman, you are now going to defend both of your titles, night 1 and night 2. You already know you're going to face, let's say, Sami Zayn winning the Rumble on night 2, but you're going to defend the titles on night 1 as well against the winner of the Elimination Chamber. So then you have Cody win the Chamber. But what you got to remember, the Chamber is in Montreal. So that would be where you would want Sami to win the match, right? Or even Owens. So maybe Cody gets the match on night 2 and Sami gets night 1. And Sami upsets Roman Reigns on night 1 and has this great, huge celebration. And it's enough to throw Roman off into night 2 where he's not prepared for Cody. But then you've kind of got two of those moments, you know? And I think trying to make two people at the same time, they've done it before, Cena and Batista winning on the same night and stuff. But I think having those two moments and using Roman to get both those guys over 2 nights in a row, worrying about one overshadowing the other. Who the fuck opens up Monday Night Raw on Monday if Roman drops a belt to each one of these guys? That type of thing. And then you're like sharing the power. It would be like having co-intercontinental champions. So I think that needs to be reserved for one guy. So I don't know if I would have Cody win the Elimination Chamber. There's so many things you could do. I mean, we're kind of discounting The Rock here too, but I don't think we should. I still think there's a potential that he could come in, but if he does, then you got to factor him into this shit. And there's been talk of having Roman defend the belts and then fight The Rock on night 2 and all of that. But the way the Sami Zayn storyline is going, that's what you should make your focal point, because that's your top star, your top angle. It's what should be in the main event, and it should be the headliner of your show. So we'll see if WWE does something to achieve that. And I think that doing something big at the Elimination Chamber having a big angle happen in that match could definitely happen. Don't forget about Kevin Owens. I'm not completely ruling out him actually winning these titles on Saturday. I would love that if he did, but I think that it's probably best for Roman to carry the belts into WrestleMania. But if he does, how is he going to get past Kevin Owens? It sounds like he's setting up Sami Zayn for a really big test on Saturday, and he's going to have to pass it somehow, so he might be the one to help Roman Reigns win. Brian Spencer, come to San Antonio. There's still time. I don't know, man. I would love to. But if you could see what I spent on those WrestleMania tickets the other day, it was a little bit jarring. I wasn't expecting it to be dropping that much, but that's what you got to do if you're going to go to WrestleMania. Luckily, hotel and WrestleMania tickets are paid for. So at this point, it's just beer and food. That's all I got to worry about I'm ready for that. But yeah, I got 3 nights in a hotel up there in LA. By the way, if anybody's going to be in LA for WrestleMania, hit me up. Make sure you follow me on social media. Shoot me a DM. We're definitely going to do a meetup somewhere, hopefully like at a bar or something on Friday night or somewhere nearby the arena on Saturday. But unfortunately, Inglewood sucks, and it's not like Vegas where there's a bunch of... Vegas is the best place to go to a wrestling show because you can just stay at a hotel right there. Everything you do is in walking distance. Walk to the arena, walk to the hotel, walk to the bar, all that stuff. Can't really do that where we're at. So I'm going to talk and see what some other YouTubers are doing. Might form some sort of a meetup there. If not, I'll try to be somewhere at a designated area on Friday night. Hopefully some sports bar that can play SmackDown. Who knows? And maybe we can do a meetup there. Otherwise, Saturday afternoon prior to the show at the arena, there'll be plenty of time to hang out, meet up, take pictures, that sort of thing. Both days, night 1 and 2. So hit me up. Every time I go to a show, I meet a lot of listeners. It's always a lot of fun. And I think WrestleMania, I'll probably have an opportunity to meet the most of you. So if you're going, please hit me up. And there might actually be some sort of a designated meetup too on Saturday afternoon once I start figuring out what I should be doing. But I'm looking forward to it. So unfortunately, no San Antonio for me. But I will make a Rumble at some point. Rumble has got to hit LA, Vegas, or Phoenix. It's got to. Stone Cold, 5 more from you. Thank you. This will be my second Rumble. My first was in 2020 in Houston when Edge returned. Wow. Yeah, we just talked about that earlier on, right before the world changed. That whole year, man. Remember Pandemic TV? We were here doing a lot of live streams. I was technically laid off from my job, even though I didn't really leave it. It was just we weren't open. We had to close permanently, and I had to collect unemployment and the whole deal. And I was in my house for 3 months straight, barely, with just leaving a couple times, masks and completely covering up, and had no toilet paper in the house. Ugh, what a time, man. We were all living through it together. It was so surreal looking back to that now, what we went through and stuff, and how life pretty much feels like back to normal. I've traveled a lot. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to several wrestling shows all since the pandemic. And it feels like it's always going to be here with us, and we're always going to be getting COVID, and it sucks, but you just got to live your life, you know? I can't believe that it's been 3 years since all that was going down. I was finding things to do in the house, cooking random things and trying to keep myself busy. I gained, 15 pounds. I wasn't shaving. I don't want to go back to that, man. That was depressing. A lot of people were getting depressed. Deshaun Robinson, appreciate $2 from you. Jay White in the Rumble, like AJ Styles in 2016. We talked about that exact scenario just the other day, and I said that I wasn't sure if Jay White would get the response AJ did. AJ blew the fucking roof off. People are going to be happy to see Jay White. I think Jay White is actually... I think WWE is a better environment for him than AEW, to be honest. I think he'd do well there with Triple H. But I don't know if he's going to get quite that recognition. He's going to get a pop. He's going to get a reaction. I don't think he's going to get an AJ pop, unfortunately. But he's another guy that I actually don't have written down as a surprise that could likely be one coming into the Rumble. Yeah, shell shock. Lots of potential for Cena and Austin. We don't really know what Cena's going to be doing at WrestleMania. It looked at first like he was going to be facing Logan Paul, which I was lukewarm to, because we just saw Logan work with Roman. The match isn't going to be better than that, so what the fuck? And plus, I'd rather see Cena work with a wrestler on the roster, and now it looks like it's going to be Austin Theory, Cena in Theory, which is probably the right match to do, to be honest. But if you could take a detour or have something happen prior to then in the Rumble with Cena at least having a face-off. I mean, this is one of your last chances, your last opportunities to get a Rock and Hogan level face-off, you know? We never got it with Sting and Undertaker, and there's a few ones we've missed. But, Cena and Austin in the Rumble would be incredible. And I definitely think Austin is a likely entrant for this as well. Unfortunately, though, he better not win it. RVD could be in the Rumble, possibly. I think that he's getting a little bit old. Do we need RVD in there? I think there's a lot of spots available for mega names and current roster members. So I think with the surprises, you need to have major surprises and then a couple of lower level ones, but you don't need a bunch of them. So I don't know if we'd see RVD or not. He wasn't even on the Raw 30th. X-Pac, Sean Waltman had tweeted out today that he will not be at the Rumble. People have been asking about him, and he says, unfortunately, no. I'm in no shape to be there, and there's no chance that he will be there, according to him, unless he's just blowing smoke, like some people think The Rock might be. Okay. Amato says apparently Cena is out of the country with his wife to start filming a movie. Pics on Twitter at the airport, but he can't just take the jet to Texas. That's true. I mean, if he was going to make the Rumble, he could probably get over here in some sort of charter deal or something. I think it could happen. I would hate for Cena to have a match at the Royal Rumble have a match at WrestleMania and not be able to make the Royal Rumble. I just think there's too much possibility for awesome matchups, moments, face-offs if Cena was a part of that, given some of the other names that could potentially be in it. But we also heard the reports last week that WWE is very happy with the surprises they have planned, which means if they're happy with what they have without Cena, that means that what they have is probably pretty good. So if Cena is not there, I'm not going to be disappointed, provided we actually get these awesome surprises. Randy Orton's name has been tossed around, but I do believe he is in grave condition unless his situation has changed. I don't know. I kind of agree with Shell Shock. If Roman gets pinned, he needs to lose both titles. I know there has been talk of actually having Roman lose one of these belts ahead of WrestleMania. I think if done right, it could work just fine, but I think you just, the weight of it, for him to lose both belts at the same time, especially on a stage like WrestleMania, that's where I would do it. But, I mean, hell, WWE could have him retain. I think it's also possible that they do something to where he still leaves WrestleMania with one belt. I think it's possible. JJ Leg, appreciate $5 from you. Make Roman decide if he wants to vacate a title or he has to defend them separately at Mania. Leads to EC match for the WWE title. Okay, so maybe just give Roman the option. Adam Pearce says, look, we're going to split these titles up. You can vacate one if you want, or you got to defend them each individually, which is now going to double your workload. Maybe Paul Heyman has something to say about that. Maybe forfeiting one. I think a lot of fans would think that's cheap as well, but at least it allows you to preserve the Roman loss. Now he hasn't lost. Pierce says you got to cough one of these up for whatever reason, and then Roman, I guess, just does it. I don't know if he just coughs up the WWE title and he keeps the Universal, but that would be pretty big news. I almost think that would kind of steal thunder away from the whole situation too. I don't know, but that could be one way to do it. I think there's possibility for anything, but I do think it's probably best, since you've made it this long, to have Roman hold the belts until WrestleMania, drop them there, and then figure out what to do with them. To where maybe you could even make it maybe Cody, I want it to be Sammy, but for example, if it's Cody and he's got both belts, it was my dad's dream to win the WWE title, and I would like to defend this title in his honor, maybe bring back the old belt that apparently he owns in his possession, bring it out on TV, maybe even wear it for a little while. There was even talk last year of Cody bringing back the Winged Eagle, which would just make me his biggest fan. And maybe, out of respect for my dad, I want to proudly defend this belt that he wanted to win. I don't feel like having one championship is good for the company, and here's your Universal title back. Put this back on SmackDown and have a tournament for it. I'm going to defend the WWE title. Maybe Cody's the guy to separate them. I don't know how you do this, but I think it's probably best for Roman to take the pin, lose him at the same time, because that's what's going to give you the biggest moment. That's going to be your star-making moment, whether it be Sammy or Cody or whatever. And at this point, I think it would be Sammy. I've always wanted somebody like this to come along where you have the opportunity to have somebody new beat him. Brock Lesnar had that streak. Undertaker had that streak. And they just lost to people that were already made, and a lot of people talked about that with The Undertaker. They said, was Brock the right choice? You could have really used that moment to make someone, and you could have. So they have another opportunity here. It's not quite the same as The Undertaker, but you find yourself in a position where when somebody beats this guy, it's going to be a mega huge deal. And it's going to be a gasping air out of the arena, out of your lungs type of deal. Holy shit type of thing. That's when you want to capitalize that on the most, and you want to make sure that you're going to get some return on this payoff and the return on this investment. And if you make Sammy here, you know, he could be Daniel Bryan, the sequel in WWE, because he's got a lot of that lovability to him. He's a dirty looking hippie, just like Danielson is. He's kind-hearted. He gives to charity. He's just the best dude. He's the best guy in the fucking world. And I think fans love him, and he's the guy where we sit now. He's the one I'm making. If I'm sitting in Triple H's chair, I'm capitalizing on what's happening on TV. You know, a lot of it, some of it's been planned, some of it's been organic. I think at first, maybe the plan wasn't to have Sammy go all the way to WrestleMania, but now it's almost looking like, how do you not do that? And if they don't do that, that's when you run the risk of, you know, backlash, or that backlash landing on somebody who doesn't deserve it, like Cody. And I think with Vince in control, Vince is the guy that would completely fucking sabotage Cody here, because he would just have Cody not only go into the Royal Rumble and win it, but probably eliminate Sami Zayn. And Vince is like, oh, the fans are going to love it. It's for Dusty, you know, because he's so stupid. And that's where you could run into problems. I'm hoping that Triple H is a lot smarter than that, and he understands this, and he sees, you know, the writing on the wall, so to speak, and books Royal Rumble in a way to where everybody can benefit, you know, because Cody, even though he's Cody, it's not like he's been in WWE for very long. He only came in last year for a couple of months. Granted, he worked great while he was there, great debut, and, you know, great Hell in the Cell match there. You know, there's been a lot of guys who have been there putting all the time in, and for Cody just to come in, swoop in, take the Rumble victory and the main event match at WrestleMania away from everybody else that's been active in storylines for the past several years, I think some fans might take notice to that and say, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. So with me, don't ruin Cody. Don't make Cody a casualty in this. You can bring Cody back and still give him meaningful shit to do until the Bloodline and Sammy stuff plays out. And then Cody can be right there to challenge whoever the fuck. So I still think Cody's day is coming. I still think Cody could have his day at SummerSlam or anything like that. But in terms of WrestleMania, I think the only way you put Cody in there now is if it's like a 2-night thing, and I don't know if I want to see that. So, JJ, you have one of many different paths or options we could take going into WrestleMania. I think that's all for the Super Chats for now. We'll get back to the chat here in a minute. We still have to predict Royal Rumble, and I still have to answer a shitload of questions, and we're almost 2 hours deep in the podcast. Anyway, let's get into Royal Rumble predictions now. It's time. How about that? 1 hour and 42 minutes into the show. We're finally going to do what the thumbnail says we're going to do. How cool is that? Anyway, let's predict the Royal Rumble. I only see 5 matches on WWE.com and on anywhere. There's 3 singles matches here, and then we have the men's and women's Rumble. Tomorrow night on SmackDown, I suppose they could add a SmackDown women's title match. We could get Charlotte against Sonya Deville. I don't think they're going to wrap up that tag tournament in time to do the Usos versus anybody. So maybe one other match. Trying to think what else, what other issues are outstanding right now on TV that would actually give it a match at the Royal Rumble. I can't think of any. So it might just be these 3 or these 5 matches. So we'll start with the pitch black match, the Mountain Dew pitch black match. Mountain Dew pitch black. So Bray Wyatt's first match back in WWE in a couple of years is going to have a Mountain Dew advertisement attached to it. He, of course, is taking on LA Knight. This is a really weird angle for LA Knight to be in, but LA Knight's done great, and everybody likes LA Knight, and everybody's ready for LA Knight to move on and go do something else. So hopefully this will be the only match he has with Bray Wyatt here, and Bray will start whatever nonsense he's going to be doing with Uncle Howdy. So I'm going to pick Bray Wyatt. I don't know what a pitch black match is. I don't know what to expect. If it's pitch black, how the fuck are we going to see it? So it can't be all pitch black. Maybe it's probably going to be increments of pitch blackness, maybe, to where the lights are up, the lights are down, or it's cinematic, but I don't think it's going to be cinematic because you're in the middle of this huge arena. I really don't know what they're going to do. They haven't explained what this is. I'm trying to think of all these different ways they could do it. Could they lower something to the ring that encases them in something that's black? But then how do you see, like, how do you even present this to the audience if it's a pitch black match? So I have a feeling that the match is not going to be pitch black the whole time. It's going to be lit or darkly lit, or maybe have, can they do like, I guess, can they just do black and white lights or make it look like a Karrion Kross? It might just be for the TV audience. Maybe in the arena audience experiences something completely different than we do. I don't know. It sounds weird. I don't even think they needed to have this Mountain Dew shit match, but they are. But we're going to pick Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt, of course, has been busy with The Undertaker. Uncle Howdy's been busy with Alexa Bliss. There's a lot of stuff going on here with Bray Wyatt. I think we're going to see an appearance from Uncle Howdy because it's been reported that Bray Wyatt's match at WrestleMania will be with Uncle Howdy. So a lot of talk about who Uncle Howdy is. And I think at this point, the person playing Uncle Howdy probably is Bo Dallas. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. Oh, it's Bo Dallas. And I always was thinking of Uncle Howdy in the sense that we're going to get a reveal of who Uncle Howdy is. I think Uncle Howdy is just Uncle Howdy. That's just who the character is. So there's really no reveal to be had. So that is where I was struggling in my line of thinking, because I'm like, well, what sense does it make for it to be Bo Dallas when he rips off the hat to reveal that he's Bo Dallas? Nobody's going to remember him, barely. He's not going to get a reaction. It's not like he was a big star. He was a fucking joke when he was there. And the B team or whatever. He was a complete idiot. So revealing him would be weird. What kind of reaction would that get? But then it occurred to me that the plan is probably not to reveal him. So he's just going to be Uncle Howdy, and Bo Dallas can wrestle, and Bray Wyatt is going to wind up having, this match with Uncle Howdy at WrestleMania, I guess. So I suppose it is possible that LA Knight wins with help from Uncle Howdy. But I think Bray Wyatt's got to win. It's his first match back. I mean, this angle is so nuts. I don't want to hear anybody say the wrong or right way to book something. We've never seen an angle this bonkers. So if they want to invert everything and go backwards or color outside the lines, I got no problem with that. This shit's wacky enough as it is. So if they did have Bray Wyatt lose, I'm not going to look at it in the context of an angry wrestling fan. I can't believe they had Bray Wyatt lose. There's probably a reason. This is a wacky-ass feud. Let them do shit weird if they want. He's still Bray Wyatt. He's still a major character. If Uncle Howdy were to come in and beat his ass or whatever and allow LA Knight to somehow get the win in this weird shit, it wouldn't be a burial of Bray at all, and it would be a great nudge for LA Knight. I think it's a situation where everybody wins. But that's a big if they were to do that. So I still think we're going to see Bray Wyatt beat LA Knight in this pitch black match. And since it's a pitch black match, maybe it's a match where you're not even pinned. I don't even know the rules. We will find out. Something tells me we're going to hate the rules. I have this feeling that whatever they do, we're going to be like, oh, brother, or it's just going to be weird and not make much sense and maybe be an overall disappointment. So we'll find out. It might be a big make or break moment here in this angle if the fans are expected to give this angle the patience and time to go all the way into WrestleMania, and they've already been kind of complaining lately that the angle's taken a while, they're dragging their feet. If this is a bust, it's not going to do this angle and storyline any favors at all. So I think this needs to be a big deal. We saw Wyatt teasing the Funhouse. The Funhouse is back. I think all of that could play a role here. You're probably going to have a lot of stuff going on the Tron or the screen or whatever. So that'll probably play a role. But I think in the end, it will be Bray Wyatt getting the win. I think his friend is going to take the loss. Bianca Belair defending her Raw Women's title against Alexa Bliss. In the run back from the match they tried to do on Raw a couple weeks back where Alexa kind of snapped and she bloodied up Bianca. She did the deal on TV before that where she smashed her in the head with a vase. Sounds like she is kind of being controlled a bit by Uncle Howdy. He's been showing up. Uncle Howdy masks have been showing up in the arena. And it's been distracting her and almost kind of transforming her into a much more aggressive and dangerous type of competitor where she's kind of gone nuts a little bit. So I think that can either help her or harm her. She could find herself disqualified again, or it could be a distraction. So I think the way this is going to go is Bianca's going to retain the title here. Under normal circumstances, if this was any other women's champion other than Bianca, I could see them putting the belt on Alexa here with everything going on with Uncle Howdy. But Bianca is so close to WrestleMania, and she will have held that women's title for a year. If you are going to have her drop it, I'm having her drop it there, and I'm having her drop it to the winner of the Royal Rumble, who I've already picked. But they could give it to Alexa here. I just think no. I think you just got to keep running with Bianca. And you could book it in a way where it's not going to harm Alexa. Yeah, they're in the middle of kind of building a brand new storyline for her. But like I said, it's some wacky shit. There's really no right way. Oh, she shouldn't take a loss here. I'm like, there's people in Uncle Howdy masks surrounding the ring. I don't think there's really a right or wrong way to do any of this stuff. So I think with Alexa, maybe the Uncle Howdies show up, or just Uncle Howdy, and he comes out, and maybe it just distracts her and Bianca just KODs her. That's probably what they'll do. It might just be a distraction, or her lights will flicker, or something will happen where she'll get caught in the KOD. I think maybe she could turn nuts first. She could kind of turn violent, start tearing up Bianca, hopefully managing not to be disqualified. And then something else happens where she stops, and she kind of gets distracted, allowing Bianca to recover, grab her, KOD, whatever, put her down and retain the title, but, retain just barely. And Bianca getting the hell out of there. She goes, because I don't know what's going on here, but this is scary and weird. So Bianca's gone, hopefully, to go feud with somebody else. And Alexa now has to figure out something to do and how to manage this whole Uncle Howdy situation. So I'm going to pick Bianca Belair to retain over Alexa Bliss. And now we got Roman Reigns defending the undisputed WWE and Universal Championship against Kevin Owens. Oh, my God. I mean, Kevin Owens is criminally overdue for another WWE Championship run. It's been, 6 years? How long has it been? 7 years almost since he won the Universal title in 2016? Summer of 2016. It's about 6.5 years now since that happened. That's nuts, man. He's way overdue. And they had that little mishap when he faced Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago, and Roman got handcuffed to the floor and couldn't get up in time. And then they had to pretend like the referee didn't count. I forgot what they did, beat up the referee, whatever. And took forever to get Roman unhooked there. And then he wound up retaining and going on to beat Kevin Owens. So now it's the rematch. And as much as I'd love to see Kevin Owens win the title, it's like you got to save everything for Mania. You got to save everything for whatever you're going to do with Sami Zayn and whoever the Rumble winner is going to be. But I still think you can book this match in a very interesting way and use it as a way to further the Sami Zayn stuff because of all the history with Sami and Roman, and with Sami and who is his best friend, Kevin Owens. So Roman was about to execute Sami Zayn last Monday on Raw until Jay intervened and changed Roman's mind, finding Sami Zayn not guilty. But he said he's not guilty for now, and he wants Sami Zayn to go on home and doesn't want to see him again until the Royal Rumble, after Sami was done with his Monday Night Raw tag team title business. So that implies that he wants Sami Zayn to complete some tasks. So I'm sure at the Royal Rumble we'll get a segment early in the show of Roman Reigns summoning Sami and giving him some orders or whatever. And then that will play out in this match, Roman against Kevin Owens. And Sami Zayn will come down to the ring to either help Roman retain or help Owens win, or maybe screw up, but Roman retains anyway. Perhaps Sami Zayn decides to turn on Roman Reigns and help Kevin Owens win, or maybe Sami turns on Roman, but it backfires. He realizes that Roman's going to kill him eventually, so let's beat him to the punch. He turns on Roman Reigns. Fans get all excited because they think Owens is going to win the title, but Roman somehow still retains, and then Sami's like, oh shit, now I'm really dead. And then maybe he goes on to win the Royal Rumble or something. But I think he's going to be tested here in some way. So perhaps he helps Roman Reigns win, and then that makes the audience think, oh, okay, now Sammy is back in good graces. Maybe even Roman Reigns gives him a hug, and if Sammy were to go on to win the Royal Rumble later, that would make things very interesting. So I think with Roman and Kevin Owens, what's going to happen? My prediction is that Roman Reigns is going to retain, or I should say this, Roman Reigns is going to leave as champion. I will say that. However, I'm pretty sure that last year they did a DQ. Didn't Rollins beat him via DQ? Right? That was last year's Rumble, I think. So maybe don't do that again. Maybe not do the DQ, but you could. You could. Especially if you have big things planned for the Rumbles, fans can get over it, right? But if you beat Kevin Owens, I think maybe you do it with Sami Zayn's help. And then if Sammy were to go on to win the Rumble, so say, for example, Sammy comes down, he proves himself to Roman. Roman's able to beat Kevin Owens with the assist from Sammy. And then Sammy says, see, if that's not more of an indication that I'm with you and I was willing to do that to my best friend. And then Roman is okay again and he gives Sammy a big hug. But we still have the Rumble coming up. And then Sammy goes into the Rumble and wins. And then you're on Raw, and then you have all sorts of decisions to make. So who knows? But I think what's going to happen is Roman Reigns will defeat Kevin Owens, and I really think there's a good chance he will have help from Sami Zayn. And that will be the last good moment that Sami Zayn has before everything comes crumbling down. Or maybe everything starts rising up if he does, like I said, win the Royal Rumble. So yeah, Roman's going to retain there, I think. In the Women's Rumble, this thing is whack because, first of all, we only have 7 women or 8 women announced for this thing, which I didn't even bother writing down. It's like Zelina and Raquel and 5 others. So why, if there's a WrestleMania main event title shot at stake, why are these women not bum rushing themselves to get qualified for this thing? They've even taken the time to have qualifying matches. I think Emma had to have a match to qualify to get in, right? But there's still only 7 spots. So why are they not announcing spots? I mean, how many surprise women are they actually going to have in this thing? So in terms of the surprises, I don't know who we could see here. Number one, I definitely think we could see Beth Phoenix because I think there's got to be some sort of situation tied up with her and Rhea Ripley. I think Kelly. I think we could see Lita. I think we could see Chelsea Green, and I think we could see Naomi. I am pretty confident that we're going to see Naomi in the Royal Rumble tomorrow. And I think when she comes out, she will get a pop, a massive, massive, massive pop. I believe that. So Naomi's definitely one of the surprises. A lot of people have been saying Asuka could come out, maybe with her kind of makeup or something. That would be kind of cool. But there's a lot of names you could throw out for surprises, but I don't think any of those names would be realistic names to win. Unless maybe you had Naomi come in and win. Maybe you did that. But I think the person that needs to win this match is Rhea Ripley. I think Rhea Ripley should make an appearance in the Men's Rumble as well. And it depends on where all of these lie, these Rumbles, where they're going to be. If they're going to be back-to-back, if they're going to shoehorn the shows, I think you're probably going to open with the Women's Rumble, have your 3 singles matches, and close with the men's, I would assume. But I think it would be fun if Ripley was in the Men's Rumble and she was actually in both, which would be pretty cool. But I think with the way Ripley and the run Ripley's been on, the way they've been pushing her, featuring her, the way she's fit into the Judgment Day, how she's been so dominant. Granted, she's got a lot going on with Dominic in Judgment Day right now, but having her win the Rumble is exactly what I would do. She's the one most poised and ready for it and ready for that position, especially since she finished in NXT on such high terms and then kind of came in and flattened out when she got to the main roster because of the ways of WWE. Now they've been doing so good with this Judgment Day angle, and physically she's at her best. I mean, she just looks like $1 million, and I think she's the one. I think it's got to be Rhea Ripley here. I can't think of anybody more deserved to win the Rumble than her in terms of the field that we can think of in our head. And we don't even know, like I said, what Charlotte is going to do, if she's going to defend the SmackDown Women's title on the show against Sonya Deville. Probably not. And if she's not, that means she's either not booked or she's going to be in the Royal Rumble as a competitor, which puts a champion in the Royal Rumble again. And, maybe by her logic, she could say, I want to go for unifying the belts. And that's what I'm going to do. And maybe she declares that tomorrow night on SmackDown and says, Roman Reigns is walking around with 2 belts. I think I'm every bit as good of a women's wrestler as he is a men's. And I want to do that. So I am now declaring myself for the Royal Rumble. I'm going to win it. And I'm going to go to WrestleMania to challenge Bianca Belair or whoever for the championship and unify the belts. So you either do that or you have Charlotte. I would do like a double swerve surprise. Or you have Charlotte come in Brock Lesnar style as a surprise at number 30. Ripley is in there. She's been battling. Granted, Ripley is a heel. She's in there. She's been battling for a while. She's one of the final ones in there. 29 comes out. It's time for number 30. Charlotte has not been announced for the Rumble. We've seen no sign of her. 30 comes out. The buzzer rings. Out comes Charlotte. All of the fans assume it's going to be her because that's what usually happens when it's Brock in this scenario. We saw that last year. Charlotte's going to come out and win, and the fans are going to be cursing and yelling and tweeting in all caps as Charlotte is making the long walk down the aisle. But then she gets in the ring, and the final 2 are Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. And Rhea Ripley tosses the fucking queen over the top rope to the delight of fans. You give Rhea and Charlotte the Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar moment from 2020, where Drew got rid of Brock. And with Rhea and Charlotte, it would have extra special meaning since Charlotte went over Rhea all those years ago when the fans kind of felt like it should have been the other way around. So even though Charlotte and Rhea are not on an immediate collision course, at least you have Rhea get a little payback for those losses a couple of years ago by eliminating Charlotte last in the Royal Rumble and winning and going on to WrestleMania. And I think she should face Bianca Belair. I think it should be Ripley and Bianca Belair. I've been saying that for months. So that's what I would do. That's who I'm predicting. Sure, you could have somebody else win the Rumble because we still have the Elimination Chamber coming up next month. So granted, you could have somebody else win the Rumble and then Ripley can earn the title match at WrestleMania against Bianca in the Elimination Chamber or in some other way. But I wouldn't do it that way. I'd have Ripley win the Royal Rumble. That's just what I would do. So that's what I'm hoping they do. Sometimes my predictions don't usually match up with what I want. Sometimes I predict what I think WWE is going to do. But in this case, not only it's what I want, I think it's what WWE is going to do. So that's my prediction, Rhea Ripley. Let me see if there's any suggestions for women's surprises. If you guys are mentioning any in the chat here. I'm just scrolling a little bit. I know there's super chats in here. I will get to those in a second. Bray will win. People agree with that. Naomi winning. All right. Okay, good. So there's no other recommendations there. Before we get into the men's rumble, can I take a 30-second break? I don't have a nice elevator music screen to put on. I'm just going to walk away from the chair for a second, but I will be right back. Don't go sneaking out. And hit the thumbs up button if you have not yet already. I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. All right, thank you for that. Sorry about that delay. I just wanted to get up, stretch my legs, and grab another cold one, and also shut my bathroom window that was open over there. So anyway, we have got to get into the men's rumble match next. That's next on the list. Thank you for your patience. Tori Wilson, Kyrie. Oh, Kyrie, I like that. I don't think it's going to be Kyrie, though. I don't think it's going to be Sasha Banks either. I don't think we'll see them. Mickie James, we could see her again. It's possible. I'd be into that. Ronda, I don't know where Ronda is. Apparently there's no plans for her. Looked like they were going to do something with her and Raquel Gonzalez, but then that was changed. Not sure what the deal with Ronda is. She might be gone. I mean, was that match against Charlotte like the end of Ronda? I thought she would come in and do business, at the Rumble and at Mania, and then after Mania she would be gone. But I don't know if they bring her back as a surprise or if she comes in the Rumble and wins it or something. I don't know. She better not. I can't handle Ronda Rousey winning the Royal Rumble. I'll sell all my belongings and move into the woods, and that's where I'll be if you need me. It's not worth living here in a regular home anymore. If I'm living in a world where Ronda has won back-to-back Rumbles, I don't want to live like that. So I'll be in the woods. Jordan Grace, I would love Jordan Grace to come in. Girl has made quite the transformation. She could bench press a bus. My God. Mandy Rose, yeah, possibly, but she's got other things going on. Cameron Grimes in the women's Rumble? Maybe. Anyway, what do we got? Men's Rumble. So lots of things to think about here in the Men's Rumble. First of all, let's think about the surprises. Again, I have not seen, I guess I could pull it up briefly here. I did not have pulled aside who has qualified for the Rumble yet, or who has declared, whatever you want to call it. It's a handful of names. I think Baron Corbin and Gunther and some others. Lots of names. But in terms of who the surprises could be, I think we could see, like we talked about earlier, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, and The Rock. I think if the three of those guys had some sort of a moment in the ring where they were all there, and then they're the only ones in the ring, and then a fourth guy comes out, and it's Tozawa, that would be great. Some sort of moment like that would be really fun. I'd take one out of three of them. You give me Cena, Rock, or Austin, I'm pretty happy. Maybe Cena. If Cena's there, I want one or the other. I want Austin in there too. I don't think we're going to get many more opportunities in this world to get these mega moments, that still exist between icons in the business. There's a couple that we missed and we never got. And I think if you have an opportunity for Cena and Austin, you do Cena and Austin. However, there's a lot of talk that Cena is overseas right now filming a movie. He's going to be very busy doing shit. As a matter of fact, whatever he kicks off, when he starts kicking off his feud with Austin Theory, they already filmed something for that's going to air soon. They filmed when Cena was in town on the 30th. I think they filmed something backstage for Austin Theory and John Cena. So John Cena might very well be busy the entire time, the entire build up until WrestleMania, because apparently his movie schedule does have filming all the way up until Mania. So whatever kind of build he's going to do with Theory is going to all have to be done by video and shit. Like, I don't want to see that. I mean, if they are going to go with Theory and Cena, I wouldn't be surprised if they sent Theory over there to the movie set to film something with him over there, maybe beat his ass or something, or kick his ass, or jump him on set, maybe when he's in makeup or something. I could see them doing that, but that is weird how Cena's going to film the whole time and somehow have to build a match like this against Theory, which I guess he's going to put Theory over. I mean, I'm assuming Cena's going to go right on to doing another movie after WrestleMania, so will he have time to be U.S. champion and do open challenges every week? I don't think so. So he might be there just to put the kid over. I don't know. So we'll see if Cena's going to be there or not. I hope he is. I would love to see Austin in the Royal Rumble one more time. That would be so damn fun. And again, whoever eliminates Austin will probably be the one that he feuds with at WrestleMania. Would that be safe to say? Unless they had a babyface do it and it's just a great moment for them. But if Austin is going to be working a match at WrestleMania, we still don't know who that's going to be against. A lot of rumblings this week about possibly Austin and Roman Reigns, but that never really sounded realistic to me, but apparently it was talked about. I'm not too worried about that happening. That would be a complete diversion from where they're going. It would make no sense at all. So I didn't really put much stock in wherever that rumor came from or that report. Another possible surprise in the Men's Rumble Could be Brock Lesnar, like we talked about. I think Brock will probably be in it, and I think Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley will cancel each other out. I think there will be a double elimination there. They will eliminate each other. They will do the old brawl through the arena and brawl through the crowd. They can't be separated. Maybe Brock eliminates Lashley. Lashley comes back and pulls Brock out unfairly, or vice versa. I think it should go vice versa because Brock seems to be getting the better of Lashley in all these interactions. So maybe Lashley throws Brock over the top rope. That's what I would do. I would have Brock straight up, or Lashley straight up eliminate Brock. Brock will come in then and eliminate Lashley, and then they start brawling, and that sets up your WrestleMania Hell in the Cell match. So I think Brock and Lashley will cancel each other out. I think Zack Ryder is another option, another possible surprise like we talked about earlier. I think he's very, very likely. I would love to see the Great Muta. I think it would be very cool. I mean, Triple H let Shinsuke Nakamura go over there and work with him, right? So maybe as to repay that, Muta comes and makes an appearance in the Royal Rumble. I mean, technically he's already had his last match as Muta, but does the Royal Rumble really count? Coming in and making one final appearance, doing one really cool thing before retiring, appearing for the WWE, checking a big one off the fucking list, and doing it in the Royal Rumble. I would love to see it. I would love to see the Great Muta in the Men's Royal Rumble. But maybe with all of the, the stuff he's currently doing, his match was just featured on Dynamite on Wednesday, so maybe that's just a little bit too close to competition there for WWE. I don't know, but Muta would be really, really fun. In terms of names of the past, I don't really necessarily, since I already think this Men's Rumble is pretty stacked with a lot of good talent as it is, I don't really need to see the RVDs in this one. I don't need to see RVD or X-Pac. Those are fun, don't get me wrong, but I think there's so much going on and there's so much star power already here that you don't really need to fill anything else with silly returns or silly cameos by wrestlers. We didn't mention Edge. He's another guy that I think could potentially show up here because I think Beth Phoenix could show up in the Women's Rumble. Even though I picked Rhea Ripley to win, I am concerned that Beth Phoenix could eliminate Rhea Ripley from the Rumble. I definitely think that could happen. I talked about that scenario a couple of weeks ago where Beth comes in, gets revenge on Ripley by eliminating her, and then you do a match between the two, maybe on Raw or maybe even at the Chamber, but probably just on Raw, where Ripley beats her and beats her clean and wins the feud. And then you put Ripley in the Chamber and Ripley gets the title shot. You could do that. But if you do that, just make sure whoever's winning the Royal Rumble, the Women's Rumble, is somebody that's awesome and not Ronda Rousey, whatever you do. But I kind of do think whoever wins the Women's Rumble needs to be a heel. I do, because you've got two babyface women's champions right now. You got to remember, Charlotte actually is a babyface champion, even though even she forgets sometimes. But you got two babyfaces, Bianca and Charlotte. I don't know how a babyface wins the Rumble here, unless you do some major belt switching before Mania, or you do a babyface match at Mania, which is not out of the question. I think it's got to be a heel winning. So if it's not Ripley, it might just have to be Ronda. So let's just hope it's Ripley. Holy shit. But anyway, back to the Men's Rumble. I think another possible surprise, and it is a 1,000,000-to-1 long shot, but when you talk about the emotion and how awesome it was to see Edge come back in 2020, I think one return that could be almost as big as that would be if Big E was somehow miraculously recovered or cleared by the doctors, or his recovery has gone so well in the last 5 months that he's kept it quiet because he knows there's a possibility he could come back early. And so it would have to be a situation like that where he recovered quicker and everything healed about as perfectly as possible, to the point where doctors actually said you can get physical. Like I said, I think that's a very low likelihood, but imagine if it happened. And what a surprise, and how good that would feel for fans. I think you'd have 70,000 people just burst into tears. It would be that type of amazing. It would be that type of emotion, because not many people would expect that. Coming back early like that, it would kind of be like Cena in 2008, where we still thought he had months left on his recovery, and boom, there he is, number 30 in the Rumble. So if it turned out to be that situation for Big E, that would be pretty awesome. But I'm not really counting on that. So who wins this thing? Well, there's an interaction I think we need to see in this match too. Two names that are going to be in this match is going to be Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. Now, I have pitched for a while having Cody and Seth start this thing. And I think they should, because if you're not going to have Cody win, having him come in at number one and trying to outlast everybody, sure, it would be a great story if he went all the way. But would that really be likely? So I think if Cody and Seth came in as 1 and 2, they could kind of rekindle that rivalry briefly in the ring. Plus, Seth is somebody that Cody is familiar with working with. It would be a good, nice way just to kick it into the gears. Work with somebody you're used to working with for a couple of minutes in the ring in a little singles match as the Royal Rumble kicks off, just to kind of get your motor running. And then, Cody's off to the races. So I've always thought Cody and Seth starting out 1 and 2 would be a lot of fun, but you could have Cody come in midway. It just depends. You also have to think about Sami Zayn. Now, right now, I don't even think Sami Zayn is in this thing. So I would hate to predict somebody to win who's not in the Rumble. And that's, I think, what WWE has to think about here. So in my mind, I think that if WWE had at one time, or if they do currently, if they had the plan to have Cody win the Rumble and face Roman Reigns, then I would not put Sami Zayn in the Rumble at all. That way you just eliminate that being a possibility. However, I feel like you got to, in some way, you have to let that be known to the audience or something, because I'm worried now that we're at a point, especially with all this chatter like we're talking about right here, I'm worried now that fans, even if Sami isn't announced, every time that buzzer goes off, they're going to be hoping it's him. And that worries me, because if WWE in their minds are saying, okay, the plan is to go with Cody, but maybe to eliminate any worry of Cody getting any heat for Sami not winning, we're just going to not have him in the Rumble. But fans might still expect him to be in the Rumble. They might still think, Becky Lynch wasn't in the Rumble when she won it, right? Didn't she come out and she was a replacement? And I think a lot of fans had already kind of sniffed that out. So it would have to be Sami like sneaking in the back door or something or whatever if he were to win it. But I think now, with all this chatter, I worry Cody winning, I think, could be fine as long as the match was booked okay, and they didn't set themselves up for disappointment the way they did with Daniel Bryan or in 2015. I think if they book it in a way, you could still do it and have Cody win and have the fans be happy without them worrying too much about Sami, especially if something really big goes down in the title match earlier. But I think just based on where the fans are, where the storyline is, and factoring in things like The Rock, we're all these predictions here have been within the assumption that The Rock is not going to be there. And this only changed in the last couple of days. If I would have done these predictions a week ago, this whole fucking show would have been about The Rock. All the different places he could show up, but then it was reported that The Rock is not going to get himself, or not going to be able to get himself in match shape for a match with Roman at WrestleMania. So he said that he's not going to be involved. Like he didn't know this was what they wanted to do. They've been dropping all of these hints on TV. He even dropped it on his own show, Young Rock, talking about a potential match with Roman Reigns, or at least hinting at that during one of their episodes. And then he's going to act like, oh, I guess I better get in the gym then. And yes, The Rock is in great shape already. And as many people pointed out to me, being in ring shape is a lot different than just being in physical shape, cardio wise. And John, when he worked with John Cena all those years ago, he looked winded in some of those matches. The first one, especially, you're not in ring shape and you're going to go on that stage and work, but as I also pointed out, Hogan did it against The Rock, but that was a very different match, and Hogan works a very different and slower style, so they were able to pull it off with bullshit. But Rock would have to work a little bit harder, I guess, in a match with Roman Reigns, and he doesn't feel like he's going to be ready. So as of now, the plan is to not go with The Rock after they have lightning bolts. Look, they have lightning bolts all over the damn Royal Rumble graphics. They've been releasing videos on YouTube, greatest Royal Rumble moments, Rock's on the thumbnail, hints left and right, breadcrumb trail right to the Royal Rumble. and a big headlining match with The Rock and Roman Reigns in LA, headlining WrestleMania. And then all of a sudden, in the last couple of days, like the brakes have been put on that. And now, and then another big factor was on Monday when they had the acknowledgement ceremony plan, which was going to feature all the Samoans. I think they were going to fly in Afa and Sika, and they're going to have Rikishi. Anyone who's still alive is going to be there. And that was going to be another really big hint. If the entire Samoan family, the entire bloodline is going to be there, every living member of the Samoan family, except one, is going to be there to acknowledge Roman Reigns, and Roman's going to get on the mic and declare himself the greatest person that's ever existed in this family and do all that. That's kind of what I thought they were going to do. And then it was changed. Later on, late in the week, they changed it to the tribal court, and the acknowledgement ceremony was dropped. So that kind of tells us that, I guess, once Rock made it known that he's not going to do WrestleMania, Triple H is like, all right, we got to back off this bloodline shit and this acknowledgement shit. If Rock's not going to be there because all the audience members are going to expect him to be, and if you're going to go out on TV and declare yourself the greatest member of that family, everybody is going to expect that to lead to a showdown with The Rock, and then it doesn't. They had to switch gears. So they booked the tribal court segment instead. But the tribal court segment was so damn good, it looked like it had been planned all along. That did not look like something they threw together. That was really, really well executed. So upon learning that, it feels like a lot of us have changed our tune on The Rock. And I was really hoping he would be there to be involved in the moment it could create if he was in the Rumble and he faced Roman Reigns. And I feel like if you don't do The Rock and Roman Reigns in that town in LA at WrestleMania right now when Roman's at his hottest, I don't know when you get this match done, if ever. I don't know if Rock ever wrestles again. 10 years ago when he wrestled John Cena, I thought he was at the end, physically, in terms of being able to compete. Rock is still a physical freak of nature, but in terms of being able to actually wrestle a good athletic quality wrestling match, I was worrying that those days were behind him then. Now he's 10 years older, and I don't know how good that match would be anyway as it is, much less a couple years from now. And maybe WWE even knows that too. I feel like, the Undertaker's match, his, retirement match against Roman Reigns, where he put the hat and coat and gloves in the ring, I felt like that match sucked. I felt like the Undertaker's match where he lost the streak to Brock Lesnar sucked. The only thing that made that match memorable was the finish. Had Undertaker won that night, we probably would have been looking back at it as a match that he should have lost. When you really think about it, think about how you know wrestling fans to be or how you know yourself to be. And if Undertaker would have won that sloppy, slow match and beat Brock Lesnar, I guarantee you, myself included, I might have been one of those on the review that night that would have said, I'm glad the streak is intact, but man, that did a lot of damage to Brock Lesnar. He lost to an inferior man, and Undertaker was old and slow and tired and out of shape and gassed and completely spent, and he somehow beats this UFC fighting machine. That doesn't make any sense, streak or not. Maybe it was just the aura and the magic of the Undertaker that got him through it. So I definitely think there would have been an audience that would have been saying that. And maybe after that win, we would have been changing our tune on the streak. We might have actually been saying, you know what? It might be best to end the streak because you could get a big moment out of it or something. It might just sour the fans enough. I think that is where some fans might have gone in terms of how they viewed that match if we lived in a different universe. So with all the different possibilities, like I said, Brock and Lashley are going to cancel each other out. Would be great to have a big legendary moment with Cena, Austin, Rock. Would be great to see Jay White show up there. It would be great to see the Great Muta. It would be awesome and special to see Big E. It would be awesome to see Zack Ryder. It would be awesome to see Edge. It would be awesome to see Seth and Cody rekindle their rivalry somewhere in that match, whether they start it or whether they finish it. Being there at the end would be great. But in the end, I'm going with the same thoughts in the Women's Rumble. I'm going with what I want to see. And I have been so incredibly sold on this Bloodline story. And it's been one amazing moment and chapter after another. I didn't think they could get any better than what we saw at War Games and how perfectly that whole story was told. And then they were able to have a great holiday season, and now you can start seeing things starting to happen. Dissension, wheels starting to come off of the bloodline, definitely setting up for something big. The segment on Raw got 2.6 million people were watching that tribal court. WWE is going to realize that. Sami Zayn is all the rage right now. Like I said, he's got those vibes that Daniel Bryan had back in 2013 and going into 2014, where the fans just wanted him to be the guy. They were behind everything he was doing, and WWE had to change course. And like I said, if WWE did have plans to change course with Cody, I easily think Cody can survive. You can do fun things with Cody in the Rumble, and Cody can still have his moment at SummerSlam or whenever he wins the title. But I think you're building the bloodline and the Sami angle so much, building it up so much, and it's being universally praised by so much of the wrestling audience that I think it's going to get to the point where the fans are going to accept nothing but that. And now you have to figure out how to balance that. Okay, if we're going to switch gears and now we got to start thinking about having Sami win the Rumble, well, then what do you do at Elimination Chamber? Because they probably had something pretty major planned for that too. So my only advice, not only to myself, but to everybody else watching on Saturday, and we're going to be watching together, is that if Sami Zayn does not win, or you feel like you haven't been creatively satisfied with whatever they did with Roman and Sami on Saturday, remember there's always Montreal. And I think that's going to be a big night as well, and potentially a big moment for Roman, Sami, Owens, or all three of them. Who knows? But I think something big could happen in that match too. And title matches could be earned, perhaps. But you could also have a title defended. And that could be another tool used to separate the belts somehow. If you wanted to put Roman in that match, and then Paul Heyman says, wait a minute, and he pulls out some Scott Steiner math, and he says, Roman's got a 1 in 5 chance of winning this match. He's got 2 championships on the line with only a 20% chance of winning. That's not right. So the best we're going to do, a compromise, he only has to defend one of those championships. And Heyman's like, it's not fair to have him defend both in that way, in that environment, in that nature. And maybe Pierce actually agrees with that logic and says, yeah, you know what? You're kind of right. All right, I'll tell you what. This is for the WWE title only. And Roman will still be defending the Universal title at WrestleMania, regardless of whether or not he wins here or not. And then maybe Kevin Owens wins the championship at the Elimination Chamber, maybe with help from Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn's the winner of the Rumble. I don't know why he'd be in the chamber then. Oh yeah, it's for the title. Still, it would be weird. Maybe he's not even in the chamber. Just maybe it's Owens or something. And Sami Zayn helps Owens win the title. He wins the WWE title, just like Eddie won the title from Brock in February, right? He beats Roman. Big moment for Owens. Help from Sami Zayn. And then now Roman's pissed. Now Roman's really pissed. Although I don't know why Sami Zayn would poke that bear. He's got to go into WrestleMania and face him. So now Roman's pissed. Now he's on a murder mission. And now not only is he defending his Universal title against Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, Sami Zayn's going to be defending his life because Roman Reigns is coming for his head. And maybe Owens gets involved or whatever. Owens also, by the way, defends his WWE title on night 1. Just like Eddie defended against Angle, Owens will defend against whoever, McIntyre. He'll win, retain. And then on night 2, Sami Zayn wins the title from Roman Reigns. He's celebrating in the ring. I don't know how he wins, but he wins somehow, whether he wins with help or not. And he's standing there with the belt as the confetti's coming down, and he turns around and he sees his best friend, Kevin Owens, with his WWE title on his shoulder. You get the embrace. You get the Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, WrestleMania 20 embrace with Owens and Sami. Tears plenty in the audience at home. I'm almost tearing up talking about it. And this amazing moment between them. Book me a better finish to WrestleMania than that. I mean, in terms of sending the fans home happy and just having a feel goddamn good moment. Pick me a better one. I think that's what you do. So based on all those possibilities and the things you could do and how great you could make it, I'm having Sami Zayn win the Royal Rumble, because if Sami Zayn wins the Royal Rumble, that's going to present some really interesting scenarios for Roman Reigns and for the bloodline. And it's going to present some interesting options for the Usos, where they stand. Solo Sikoa, I think, is going to be with Roman no matter what. I think Solo is he is a lieutenant, and he is the muscle in that group, and he is fiercely loyal, and he'd be somebody I'd want backing up me. So I can kind of see Solo stand with Roman. The Usos might have some decisions to make in terms of their loyalty. But in the end of the day, I think the relationship with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens needs to also be a big part of this, and the focal point, seeing them come back together and just have this moment for the two of them. I know if I was in their shoes, everything they've done together, this would be extremely special for them to be kind of going in this same direction together. It would be awesome. You probably can't find too many more deserving guys in all of the business. There's only a few: Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's and Adam Cole's. They are a rare breed. These just unbelievably, incredibly awesome people. And those are the ones you want to see get these opportunities and these moments, especially when they're so over and they're so beloved. So I think there's lots of possibilities here. I just think for the good of the story, WWE's top story that gets the most attention and the best ratings is what they do with the bloodline. And I think that's what you have to go with going into WrestleMania, because that's just logical booking. So I'm picking Sami Zayn, even though he's not even announced for this damn thing yet, I don't think. I'm picking him to win. If I'm wrong, then I think it's going to be Cody. I think it's got to be Sami or Cody or some major surprise. It better not be Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't think it's going to be. If Goldberg is in the Royal Rumble, I will legally change my name to Sensational Sherry if Goldberg wins the Royal Rumble. But Goldberg could come in as well. I don't want him there, anywhere near it. And I don't need any of these legends winning any of this shit either. I don't need to see Kane there. I sure as hell hope we don't see the American Badass hobble his way out there either. So none of that is needed in my mind. I just think Sami winning would be so great for TV, and the dynamic with the bloodline and the expectations that Roman's going to have for him and how that's going to tie into the eventual split, beatdown, whatever. Because a lot of us have been assuming that Sami is going to just get his ass kicked, and that's how he's going to leave the bloodline. But it might not necessarily be that way. I think maybe he turns on them first or something, but whatever happens, I hope it translates into a Sami Zayn moment at WrestleMania. And guess who's going to be there? Good old Greg. I got 50-yard line seats for WrestleMania. Real good ones. Second level up. I think there's 3 levels or 4 levels. I'm the second one up, directly over the ring. Pretty good seats. And only had to sell 1 kidney to get them, so it was kind of cool. All right, so that kind of does it for the news and predictions. That took, Jesus Christ, 2.5 hours. It is late, guys. We still got to answer some questions. I'll try not to take too much time doing that. But just to recap on the Rumble: Bray Wyatt over LA Knight, Bianca Belair retaining over Alexa Bliss, Roman Reigns over Kevin Owens. I've got Rhea Ripley winning the Royal Rumble, possibly last eliminating Charlotte. That's what I'd like to see. And I'm going Sami Zayn on the Men's Rumble. I think at this point, given that number they pulled on Monday night for Raw, who knows what kind of shit they're going to pull tomorrow night on SmackDown. But I think for the Men's Rumble, a Sami victory just opens up all kinds of doors for awesomeness, and it would be really hard to fuck that up. So with Vince gone, take advantage of that while you can, and try to book some great shit and try to book Sami Zayn in a very similar fashion to how you did Daniel Bryan back in the day, back in 2014. And hopefully, unlike Daniel Bryan, Sami will not find himself immediately injured right after that great moment, and can actually, go into some sort of a run and capitalize on this push and this newfound fame that he's fallen into. So the whole thing's been really good, and I think we need a payoff in it, something major. And so I'm going Sami. And that's it for that. We're going to get into the questions here now. I've got a bunch written down, but I will go over here to the chat first. I want to thank everybody who's staying up late. If you are on the East Coast, it's 11:30. So thank you for not being a nerd and being able to hang with us. Appreciate that. Pretty good audience here at this time of the night. And we still have a lot to talk about, so as long as you guys are okay with continuing to stream, I can hang. It's only 8:30 for me. So I got all the time in the world, but we will get into the Q&A portion now. But first, I'm going to cruise to the chat and make sure I hit all of the super chats, and I don't want to miss anybody. I'm going to go all the way back to the last one I read, which was JJ, way back when. So the next one up, I believe, is Deshaun Robinson, and you sent this a while back, Deshaun, but appreciate that. $5. K-Dog Skennel above you says the pitch black blindfold match, kind of like the Inferno match. They could do something like that. Maybe the pitch black match is just a blindfold match. If that's what it is, if it's the Jake the Snake, Rick Martel blindfold match from WrestleMania 7, and they just put a black see-through hood on these guys, that's going to be disappointing. They might actually do that. Now you've got me worried, Kevin. Deshaun, I appreciate that $5, man. I read that the pitch black match will consist of the match place in the dark, but there will be neon lights everywhere. Okay. I kind of said something similar earlier when we were speculating. I thought that maybe it would be really, really dimly lit, or maybe looks like something like Karrion Kross and Scarlett use or whatever. But yeah, there's going to have to be some lights to it. So maybe you're not going to have a full look. Maybe it's going to give you the type of effect where maybe you kind of just see silhouettes or shadows wrestling or something like that. I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be dumb. I hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling it's going to be really dumb. However, if, as JJ says below you, if we see another Wyatt 6-member debut and we get something like that happen in the match that kind of makes the weirdness of the match okay, then that would also be good. Oh yeah, the Human Torch match too. I remember that. All right, who's next on the chatsters? Good chat engagement tonight. I appreciate it, guys. All right, Jimmy Fingers. Wow, thank you for a couple, 3 of them coming in. How many? 3 of them? 4 of them? Jimmy Fingers is super chatting his balls off over here. Let's start with the first one, $20. Thank you so much, my friend. Very late to the show, Greg, and off topic, but I want to speak on Mark Briscoe. Still a disgrace that it took Jay's death for the Briscoes to be seen on national TV, but watching Mark kill it last night brought me peace and closure. We talked about that earlier on. We recapped Dynamite a bit, and I said the same thing. You know, I commended Tony Khan for really making that happen and going to bat and making those butt fucks in Warner Brothers Discovery, who it just seems like a mess there internally. Making them understand and reverse their idiotic stance on not allowing him to. And as I pointed out when we talked about Jay last week, I'm like, when you look at the process he went through to make amends for that, and the genuine, real remorse that he showed, and all of the steps he took to make it right and be forgiven and to be welcomed back in with good graces with straight, gay, lesbian wrestlers, everybody understood and welcomed him back. Nobody condones the idiotic shit that he said, but he did exactly what somebody in that position should do. He learned from it. He learned a lesson. And to me, that type of growth and that type of maturing is something that should be highlighted and celebrated, not hidden. And he made great strides to change, and that's great. So yeah, it was idiotic, but at the end of the day, they got that reversed, and now apparently Mark Briscoe can appear on TNT going forward if they so choose. And that match was so good against Jay Lethal. I was worried these guys would even be able to get through it. I mean, forget about all those things Mark had to go through. You see Jay Lethal out there is barely even able to get through the entrance and the introduction without sobbing. You could see him even having to kind of compose himself before the lockup. Not only did they go out there with all that on their mind, a whole day of mourning and grief and sobbing and condolences backstage with the locker room all day, and then having to get in the mindset to go out there and kick ass that night, that's That's why they're called professional wrestlers, because they are professionals in every sense of the word. It was such a good match. You chimed in with 5 more. Thank you for that, dude. 519. I am also thrilled to learn that Mark will continue on. He is going to be a top single star on his own merit. I look forward to his first program. Me too. I do too. We talked about that as well. I think as a fan, I almost hate speaking on this because I don't want to say what they should do. Mark can do whatever, Ring of Honor and Mark, whatever they want to do to honor Jay with those tag team titles is perfectly fine with me. I'm not going to question it. As a fan, I think it would be kind of nice if they retired those 2 physical belts, created new tags, and Jay and Mark Briscoe just retired as tag champions. I don't think, if I'm Mark, I'm not wanting to try to replace him. I wouldn't want a new partner or try to continue and defend the tags, even if it was for the honor of your brother. Maybe he could try to defend him on his own, because they're just crazy enough to where that would work perfectly. If he's like, oh, my brother want me to defend these by myself, I'll go at it alone. I don't need no partners. I'll fight anybody, whatever, bring it on, bitch. And he just fights and fights and fights, and he's bloody and covered in blood, and he eventually succumbs, and you actually do pass on the tag team titles. And, he fought that hard and fought for his life, for his brother, so you could tie in a nice tribute there. But I think if you just retired those physical belts as the Briscoe tags and they're immortalized in, the Hall of Fame of Ring of Honor, and they're encased, or you give them to Mark and he keeps them forever. And then you create new tags and you crown new champions, and Mark Briscoe just becomes a single star. As a fan, I think that's what I would like, is he would become a single star and he would carry on the family name for Jay. I think of, granted they weren't a tag team, but, Charlotte, a big part of her career is, is owed to, Reed and what his dreams were and how she kind of, and after his tragic death, kind of went in that direction for him type of thing. Even though it's not the same, it's kind of like that, to where I think, Mark could dedicate his entire singles run and persona to his brother. So that's what I would like to see. And I'm glad that we saw what we did last night on Dynamite, because it was really, really well done. You've got 5 more. Sammy winning the Royal Rumble. They won't make the same mistake twice, not under Triple H. Cody can wait, or he will get the same entitled heat like he did in AEW. I essentially said the same thing. I agree. I would worry what would happen to Cody if they tried to push a victory through, because they may very well have had Cody penciled in for a couple of months. And if I'm Cody, he seems like just the type of guy that would actually recognize that and say, hey, I don't think I should win because I don't want that fucking heat. Yeah, it would be great to win the Royal Rumble, but I think the fans are going to reject me, resent me, because I took it from Sammy or whatever, and I don't want to be in that position, so I think we should go with Sammy. I could actually see Cody being smart enough to see that and say, wait a second, but hopefully Triple H will also see that, like Jimmy is pointing out, and they will go with what I'm hoping they do, and that is have Sammy win the Rumble. Jimmy Fingers, however, if Owens were to beat Roman before somehow, and Owens actually won the titles at the Royal Rumble, I almost think it wouldn't have to be Sammy then who wins, but who knows. Jimmy Fingers, 2 more from you. As for Austin, I book him against LA Knight. Yeah. You do. Yeah. You do. You do book him against LA Knight. That would be pretty crazy. It would be cool if we could get some sort of leading up to Mania, like some double segment with Austin and Cena against LA Knight and Austin Theory, like a tag match. Remember on Raw, what year was it? They would always do a big tag match on the go home sometimes with, involving the WrestleMania main eventers. Do something like that on Raw. If Cena can tear himself away from his movie, get his ass on Raw, and Austin, we've already seen him back in the ring, so it's not like Austin is returning to the ring. So you don't need to necessarily save his in-ring return for WrestleMania. If he appears on Saturday at the Royal Rumble even, you could totally do this match, and I would have Cena and Austin against Theory and LA Knight on the go-home Raw to WrestleMania and make it like the old days, man. Make you really ready or hyped to see it. Our luck as fans, somebody would get injured and fuck the whole thing up. But I think if you book that match for TV, that would be amazing. Max Pokebro still here. Good. Chaz Maderis, thank you for being here. Welcome to your family now. Thanks for joining the family. Appreciate that. I know I have a question from you in my notes, which I guess we should get to now. This is a way longer stream than I expected. We're going old school tonight. Haven't done a stream this long in quite a while. But let's do questions now. It's time. Let me go down to my questions. The first ones I'm going to start with, by the way, are the questions from the members that I wrote down. A lot of these I read them all, but I didn't really think about too many of them. So I'm going to just go with it here. And I'm also going to defer to the chat for some suggestions, recommendations, some help, anything like that. If you did send in a question, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please just leave them in the chat and I will get to them. So let's see here. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I'm 97% done with my head cold. I came down with it 1 week ago today. It bothered the shit out of me over the weekend and it lingered and it lingered. And I think last night when I slept, I got the rest of it out. I sneezed like twice today. The nasally stuff in my voice is just about completely gone. And I think tomorrow when I wake up, I'll be good to go and I'll definitely be ready to rock and roll on Saturday. By the way, link to Saturday's Royal Rumble watch along. Live reaction is in the description. We're going to go old school. I used to react to pay-per-views all the time back in the day. Kind of got away from that, but Rumbles are really fun to react to because there's a new surprise every 30 or every minute. So it's fun. So we'll be up here on Saturday, hanging out, chilling, watching the Royal Rumble together. So make sure you are here. So let's go. Let's start with channel members. Let's start with Chris Miner. Thank you very much for your membership and all of your great support over the years. Chris, since Brock Lesnar has been back for 10 years now, this could be a hot take. I would honestly say his run has been as strong as HBK's second run. What are your favorite matches and worst matches since his return in 2012? I think Brock and HBK's runs are equal, but in completely different ways. Like Sean worked a lot more. Sean worked on TV. He was on Raw regularly. Excuse me. And he was involved in matches frequently where Brock takes long gaps off. Sean had a couple of injuries, but he worked a much bigger schedule than Brock. Brock, I think, though, had the bigger matches, more WrestleMania main events, more championships. Sean basically wrestled that entire second run with no championships at all. Won the tags, I believe. He was world heavyweight title for a minute and a half when he came back. But Brock had the bigger moments. So I think Brock actually had the bigger run. But I think Sean had the stronger run in terms of his work. So you could look, they're two completely, it's an apple and an orange. Both very, very, very delicious, but both delicious in completely different ways. And I don't know how I would really compare them, you know. I'd have to compare Sean's second run with somebody who worked a little bit more of a schedule. I don't know. But yeah, in my mind, they're kind of equal, but I'm always going to lean towards Sean because his work was so good. His matches were so good, where Brock did have some stinkers. You know, Sean really never had any stinkers. Even if he was working with Spirit Squad and shit, his matches were still good. Where Brock, he had some matches that weren't so good. So some of his bad ones, that Dean Ambrose match at WrestleMania always comes to mind. I was doing YouTube videos back then in 2016, and I remember doing predictions for WrestleMania 32 that year and predicting Ambrose to win. I thought he would beat Brock. I thought it would be a great victory for him. And since the match was no DQ, I had pitched this whole deal of like how they did halftime heat when The Rock got pinned under a forklift by Mankind. I'm like, Dean is crazy. Just have him do something like that. Have them brawl to the back, have him get Brock somehow down and pin him underneath something, and then drive a machine, you know, and lower, 5 tons of metal on top of him and pin him underneath that thing. And then he wins the title if it was Falls Count Anywhere or whatever it was. But I figured Dean Ambrose could come up with something because he was a very creative and wacky and unpredictable type of wrestler. And I thought he would be the perfect guy to concoct some sort of plan to defeat Brock Lesnar, to where it would be some crazy plan that he hatched where it would really kind of protect Brock, but it would also give Dean a huge victory and help make him. And it was a boring match that Brock won. So that one wasn't great. A couple of his matches with Roman weren't so good either because we had seen it so damn many times. I mean, every time they wrestled, they had good work, but some of their matches, I think the one where Roman won in the four-way, I don't remember loving that one too much. I thought their 34 match was really good. I thought their 31 match was really good. They had some good ones, but at least one of his Roman Reigns matches wasn't good. A lot of people were disappointed with the Samoa Joe match at Great Balls of Fire. The good ones that he had, though, he had that great one with Cena when he came back right away. He also had a great one with Cena when he destroyed him at SummerSlam. He's had good matches with Roman Reigns. He's had good matches with Seth Rollins. And he had a great match with Daniel Bryan at Survivor Series. I was there live for that at the Staples Center. And he had a good match with AJ Styles and probably some others. His matches with Lashley weren't bad. I think if they go with a Hell in a Cell with those two, it could be a lot of fun. Brock's had an interesting run because he's been able to remain part-time and remain such a big force for so long, even up until last year's SummerSlam where he's tipping over the ring with a tractor and shit. Like, the dude's insane. So yeah, his run's been amazing since coming back now 11 years ago almost, which is mind-blowing. Let's move on to Jordan Carg. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate you being here as well, and thanks for that question you sent in the other day. I know this could be an hour-long answer, but could you give a summary on how you would book Sting-Undertaker feud, or how I would have booked a Sting and Undertaker feud? Doesn't matter if it's before or after the buyout time period, era, etc. I thought the best opportunity would have been at WrestleMania 31. Actually, Jordan, that wouldn't take an hour. There's really not much you would need to do with Sting and Undertaker. That story writes itself. That is the story. Sting and Undertaker is the story. You wouldn't have to book it any other way than one guy showing up on the other guy's turf and says, I want to challenge you. I want to measure myself against you. This is something that's never happened. And with Sting coming in, that would have been the year to do it in more modern times when he came into WWE. But let's say Sting came in shortly after the buyout. Now, granted, if he came in right after, he'd be dealing with the American Badass. But let's say he didn't come in right away. Let's say he waited until 2005 to come in. Now the dead man is back. And I think if you brought Sting in, it would just be a matter of, I would probably just book that match for WrestleMania. So I would do that either way. I would either do it, in more recent times at WrestleMania 31, or if you want to go back a few years, maybe instead of spending all that time in TNA around 2005, he comes into the WWE, maybe even 2006. Actually, 2006 would be great because 2005 was WrestleMania 21, and that's when Undertaker worked with Randy Orton, and that was a great match, and we don't want to disturb that. But in WrestleMania 22, that shitty casket match with Mark Henry, cares? So that would have been a great place to do it, but you don't really have to book it. You just have Undertaker in the ring on Raw one night, and maybe the announcers are hinting to the Undertaker needs an opponent for WrestleMania, and then Sting just fucking comes out, and there's the epic stare down. You don't even need to say anything. You know how Triple H and Undertaker did it a couple of times where they just stared at each other and that was it? Instead of doing it with them, I would have done it with Sting and Undertaker because that's a true moment to where words aren't needed. But I suppose you could have Sting get on the mic and said, why don't we give the fans the dream match they've always wanted? No matter where I've gone in my wrestling travels, everybody I run into on the streets, everybody I talk to, they all ask me the same thing. What would happen if I faced the Undertaker? That's what you would do. So that's kind of how I would book it. And it would just be a great attraction match for the fans. And if they were able to pull that off in Chicago at WrestleMania 22, it would have been amazing. Amazing. It might have really elevated that WrestleMania, which doesn't really go down as a very well-remembered one. It was right after Eddie Guerrero died. And, of course, Ray won the title that night. But, smaller building, and, they would move on to stadiums after that, and they haven't looked back since. But if you add a Sting Undertaker match in the middle of that, that's where I would do it. WrestleMania 22. Nikita Abalakin, good to see you. Thanks for all of your months of membership as well. Do you think AEW should hot potato their world title for a bit to give runs to talent like Danielson, Adam Cole, Malachi Black, so not to have a missed opportunity with these guys who may not have time to wait several lengthy reigns? What are your thoughts on that? And can you solve a problem putting belts on older generation but still making new stars? Yes, you definitely can. I don't think they need to hot potato the belt or make a point to say, hey, we're going to do this and just put belts on people. I think you have to ride the wave, and I think you have to go where the fans take you and go with who's over and who's hot, like we're seeing in WWE right now. They might actually be staring down the barrel of WrestleMania plans changing. They might be changing things as we speak, as they're seeing how ridiculously over the Sami Zayn and Bloodline angle is. So with AEW, they went with MJF much for that same reason. I don't think when AEW started, anybody thought MJF would be champion there by this point. He really came on strong, and he really proved himself early to where they kind of had to put the belt on him. So I don't think they necessarily need to hot potato it. I just think they need to make sure they book the title smart. And and unfortunately with rosters that are so big, there are going to be guys that just aren't going to win the title. There's going to be plenty of guys that are championship worthy, but might never really truly fit into plans. Sometimes that's the fault of the booker. Sometimes there's been plenty of times where that has been solely on the shoulders of WWE stupidity. But there's also been times where it's kind of nobody's fault. It's like, yeah, they're worthy, but there's a lot going on at the top, or the world title situation is, already kind of filled, or there's a lot going on there. But then there's the other times where it's because Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns are taking up all the title matches and the title and the main event spots and stuff. So it just kind of depends. With AEW, I wouldn't make it a point to hot potato it unless there was some storyline where, you could bounce it back, like we just watched Royal Rumble 1999 with Foley and Rock trading the title a little bit. So I wouldn't make it a point to hot potato the title, but I definitely hope that enough guys get a chance to be champion in AEW to where they don't miss as many opportunities as WWE seems to do. But, WWE might be able to make up for a lot here too if they do separate these titles back out after WrestleMania and we've got 2 championships again. But you might only need 1 title after a sale. WWE sells. I don't know what the future holds, but whatever they are going to do, shit or get off the damn pot is what I say. Either have 2 belts or don't. So if Roman is the champion of both, then you make 1 world championship for him to carry that's undisputed. But if he's going to keep these 2 titles, then I think there should be 2 championships, and he should have to start defending them individually. And that might be a ruling that Adam Pearce winds up making. It's very, very possible. Let's see what else. Zach Pauget, favorite live event match you have ever witnessed? Man, that's a pretty good one, but unfortunately that one's kind of easy. I was at WrestleMania 3, so Hogan and Andre was a pretty big deal, and of course Savage and Steamboat also took place at that event. And even though I've seen some great matches live, I've seen TLC matches, I've seen Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar, like I talked about a minute ago. I saw Takeshita and Danielson a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite. I've seen Austin matches in my life. Nothing really tops that. So Savage, Steamboat for the win. Max Pogge, bruh, what are some Royal Rumble winners that you would preferred over the actual winner? For example, picking Bryan over Batista at Rumble 14. Well, that's definitely one. I'm trying to think. Some of the later years are all kind of a blur, but the early ones I would have had, we talked about this the other day, I would have had Mr. Perfect win the 1990 Royal Rumble and have Hogan just eliminate Warrior, and then something happens to Hogan. He just gets eliminated. But I think the only reason Hogan won the 1990 Royal Rumble was just for his ego, because he knows he's going to go into WrestleMania and drop the title. So I would have had somebody else win in 90. Hell, possibly even 91, but I kind of understand why Hogan won there. 92, 93, I'm fine with. And 94, I would have just gone Bret Hart and not done the double winner. 95 and 96 was fine. And you have a question about 97. What was up with Austin winning the Rumble in 97 if the main event of Mania ended up being Taker and Sid? I'm still kind of foggy about that in WWE's thinking. That was also at the same time of Shawn losing his smile. So you had Bret coming back. He worked with Austin at Survivor Series. There's already some dissension there with Shawn Michaels. And then they do the deal at Royal Rumble where Austin wins by cheating, but then they set up the Final Four at the next pay-per-view. So assuming that Shawn never did lose his smile, people have claimed in interviews that had Shawn not lost his smile, the plan would have still been for Shawn to lose the title on that Thursday Raw to Sid, which I really have a hard time believing, but that's what they claim. I thought the plan was to go with Bret and Shawn again at WrestleMania for the title, and this time Shawn puts Bret over. But there have been some accounts, I think Bruce Pritchard has said that it was always the plan to go with Taker. So if it was always the plan to go with Taker, then that means Shawn and Bret would not have been for the title, I guess is what they're saying. So basically Shawn didn't. So that means that Vince would have beat Shawn for the title on Thursday Raw and then beat him again at WrestleMania. No wonder Shawn lost his fucking smile. So that was all happening. So in my mind, I think the plan was to get to maybe Bret and Austin, and so Austin cheated, and then Gorilla made the Final Four, but then when Shawn coughed up the title, the Final Four turned into a title match, and that's when Bret won it, and then Sid won it the next night on Raw. So that whole thing is just really foggy. I don't know what the original plan was, because when Austin won in 97 at the Rumble, Shawn hadn't lost his smile yet. As a matter of fact, he won the title that same night. So there must have been a plan in place for Austin to cheat and then get it taken away from him. I don't know. I don't really know why they went in that direction. It should have just been Bret Hart. I think they just did it to throw a swerve at us, maybe just to make the road a little bit longer. Instead of just setting up Bret and Shawn right out of the gate, it gave them something to do at the February pay-per-view. So with Steve winning, that meant they can rebook the Final Four for February, and then Bret wins and gets the title shot. So that was probably, I guess, what the plan was. But then once Shawn lost his smile, they decided to go with Bret and Austin at WrestleMania. And then in my mind, that's the way it went. I always thought as a fan that the plan was to do Bret and Shawn. But then when Shawn lost his smile, they decided to change gears, go with Bret and Austin. And since Austin really wasn't ready for the title and Bret was probably going to beat him, put the title on Sid, and that way Undertaker can beat Sid. Because if Shawn's going to pick up and leave and go to WCW or something, maybe WWE just wanted to make sure the belt was just on their strongest guy, and so they decided to go with Taker. That's how I felt it was. That was the reason in my mind why they did it. But there's been contradicting reports and various podcasts and interviews over the years that said the plan was to go with Taker and Sid. So I don't really know, Max, to be honest with you. But it was a weird time, a weird Rumble, and a lot of stuff was going on in the company. They were in the transition period, right in the middle of it. They were while all this was going on, they were transitioning from the old Raw to the Titantron Raw and to 2-hour shows that were live instead of the 4-week canned episodes that we have been seeing. All this going on in the midst of it being WrestleMania season, a San Antonio Royal Rumble show, Shawn losing his smile, might be leaving the company, might never wrestle again. WCW is beating the shit out of them in the ratings. It was a weird time, man. 97 was weird. Specifically, WrestleMania season of 97 was very weird. JJ Leg, OG, first one to ever become a channel member. Thanks for that question you sent in. We all love Sammy and KO, but I think most of us can agree that neither of them will be the one to dethrone Roman. So here's my question. You can't pick anyone who Roman has already faced for the titles on this run. Who would you like to see be the one to finally take him down? I'm going to go Gunther, and hear me out. Another fun one would be Xavier Woods to complete the New Day WWE title holder trifecta. I am not having Xavier Woods beat Roman Reigns. So I can't hear you out, JJ Leg. That's ludicrous. I love Xavier Woods. I would be deliriously happy for Xavier Woods, but it's not something that I want to see. I like Gunther as well, but your first sentence is kind of funny, how you say we all love Sami and KO, but I think most of us can agree that neither one of them will be the one to dethrone Roman. I think one of them might be the one to dethrone Roman. I really think it's possible, as we've outlined here for the last couple of hours. So I don't think that's a given. I think with the popularity of the Sami Zayn and Bloodline angle, WWE is possibly seriously considering maybe doing that. And I would not rule it out, not under Triple H. Vince would be a little bit more stubborn and set in his ways. Triple H, I think, is more willing to say F it, especially if his future is uncertain. He might be like, let's try to do as much as we can here and make as many guys as possible. But those ratings and those numbers don't lie, man. They pulled in a big one on Monday night, and a lot of that was due to that tribal court nonsense. So as much as I like Gunther and Xavier Woods, right now, I think Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, or Cody, I think are the very, very top of the line, top of the list, front of the line, top of the list to dethrone Roman. That's my thoughts on it. Okay, the Juliet sent in a question. Juliet asks, favorite wrestler growing up? I kind of thought this was a silly question because Juliet should know this. But when I was growing up, I wasn't really a big fan of Bret. Well, I was a fan of Bret's really early, but he didn't become my go-to guy until he had firmly broke off in singles. So I would have been like 14. So prior to that, my favorite wrestlers would have been Piper, Snuka, Beefcake I liked. I liked Warrior, liked Demolition. But I think Bret has been the only favorite wrestler I've ever had. So I was going to tell you guys to smarten up Juliet, but when you go pre-Bret, I was a little fella watching wrestling. I did like Hogan and everything, but I didn't really have a full favorite wrestler until Bret came around, and he's been the only one I've ever had. K-Dog's Kennel asks, what caused Alex Wright's repackage as Berlin to crash and burn so badly in WCW in 1999? Probably just WCW. I don't remember much about Berlin. I mean, I remember him, but I don't know why the repackage crashed and burned. I wasn't paying much attention to WCW in 99. I thought they absolutely sucked. Every time I tried to watch a Nitro, it was just crap to me. They weren't nearly as good as they were. The heyday was 96, 97, 98 with me, and then 99, they just really seemed to be going in the opposite direction, and I wasn't paying much attention to them, and I wasn't really into Berlin. I liked the repackage for Alex Wright because I thought he was a really good, talented wrestler, but I don't know why it never panned out there or why he never came into the company. I don't think Alex Wright ever appeared in WWE, did he? And he probably should have. Spaz Phoenix asked a question this week. He says, if WWE gave one time slot at WrestleMania to AEW and one to Impact, what would you book? I'd say Mox and Darby because, and do Impact, and maybe Impact do an intergender match, Aiden Prince against Jordan Grace. If WWE ever grew to the monopoly that they were trying to grow to, where they were trying to go around and, put the independent wrestling scene out of business and venture into the UK and put a footing in Japan, and they're trying to really spread out and be the true ruler of the wrestling world, I could see them issuing out WrestleMania spots to lucky promotions who can get a match or qualify or win some shit or tournament. I could see in some universe that happening. But in the real world, it would make no sense to give a slot to either of them, and especially Impact. AEW I could see, but Impact, I don't know. And have an intergender match from Impact, I think WWE would say, we could do an intergender match better than them. So I don't know who I would put as my showcase. Mox and Darby would be great. Seeing Mox back, that would be great because it would put a former WWE guy back in a WWE ring, but under a different name against, one of the AEW pillars. That would be great, but I can't envision a scenario where any of that would make a ton of sense. But I guess I like your suggestions. Chaz chimes in with a good question. If you have to save any 3 items that you own from being destroyed, earthquake, fire, or flood, what would they be and why? God knows I wouldn't want any of these things to happen to you. Just curious here. That's an interesting question. Any 3 wrestling items. Okay. Well, I've got a ton of wrestling stuff behind me, as you can see. I don't have anything super valuable except a couple of very rare VHS tapes. The belts on the wall are just replica belts back there. I mean, they're the real ones. The ones over here are just toys, so they're worthless. But the ones on the wall there, I might want to grab. I got an autographed picture of Bret Hart up there when he was Intercontinental Champion. But other than that, if there was a fire or something like that, I would be more concerned about getting Tito out of here and the family and get everybody safe. There's nothing here that I would risk my life for. Everything I have is replaceable, and I don't have any sort of super expensive, rare anything when it comes to wrestling. Like I said, just a few very rare videotapes, and there might be a couple of grand worth of shit back there. I've got the WrestleMania 12 plaque when Shawn won the title, and the piece of the ring, but at the end of the day, none of this stuff are treasures. So I don't even think I have an answer to that question. But if I had to grab 3, I'd grab the WrestleMania 12 plaque, the Winged Eagle, and the IC title probably is what I'd grab out of here. No, I got to grab the Bret picture. I got to pick Bret over Shawn. I can't pick the WrestleMania 12 plaque over the Bret Hart autograph. That would be wrong. Yeah. So I'm going to take, well, shit, I can rebuy the titles too. Okay. So fuck the titles. I can just rebuy those. Let's take the autograph stuff and let's take whatever the most expensive VHS tape that I currently have. I have no idea. There's a few worth a few hundred. I'll do some eBay research. Whatever one rings up the highest, I'll keep that. So I think that's the best I can do on an answer there. Luke McAllister, this is a good one. If Brock Lesnar doesn't leave WWE in 2004, does John Cena and Batista win their respective world championships at WrestleMania 21? Probably not. I think with Cena, he might, but Batista, even though I liked Batista enough, and I really like him now, I'm a bigger fan of Batista now than I ever was when he was a wrestler. But I think Batista was WWE's replacement for Brock. And as a fan, I was kind of down on the product. I felt like we had just lost so much. The Attitude Era was long gone. Austin was long retired. Rock was gone, not coming back. WWF was WWE now. And then Brock Lesnar, the one shining light in everything, amongst all the changes, you've got this beast in Brock Lesnar who's so fucking legit. And granted, you had Angle there too, but Brock was just on another level. And then he leaves. And then WWE tries to replace the big monster guy with a lesser capable wrestler in Batista. Sure, Batista had a good look, but athletically he was nothing compared to Brock Lesnar. Brock was 10 times better than Batista in the ring. He was. Batista had his moments. Batista could turn it up when he wanted to. Hogan could do that too sometimes. Yeah, they'd surprise you. And Batista had some wars with Undertaker and is a fine professional wrestler. But compared to Brock, there was no comparison in my mind. Brock was bigger, stronger, way more athletic. Batista was very stiff. In there. He didn't have that mobility. Brock was smooth and fluent, and he could bump. If Batista had a little bit more Randy Orton in him, then maybe Batista could match up more with Lesnar. If you just sprinkle a little Orton flakes on Batista, maybe. But Brock was so much better. And I remember at the time thinking that Batista wasn't really that. He wasn't a good enough replacement for me, type of thing. So I think if Brock didn't leave, I think John Cena was so over on that level that he was with the gimmick that he still could have made it. Whether or not he wins at WrestleMania 21 or not, I'm not sure. They might have waited a year on him. Batista, though, I don't think he would have. I don't think he would. I think Randy Orton would have leapfrogged him. I think Brock would have maintained his spot, and then Randy Orton might have been, well, Batista both come in as challengers for Brock. But I don't think that Batista would have had that win at WrestleMania 21. How Wheezy, one of my favorites. What's up, dude? Have you been to a wrestling convention lately and met 65 wrestlers in 5 minutes? Post the pics when you do. You got your finger on the pulse. Who's the next big thing in WWE? Top of my head type of shit. I'm going to go Sol Ruca, who I love. Might be a little bit in love. Also Gunther and Braun Breaker. Even though that fucking name, God, Braun Breaker, so ridiculous. Even despite that, I think his charisma and his energy stands out, and he could potentially be the real deal. So those are the three I've got my eye on right now. Sol Ruca, Gunther, and the Breakster. Chris Barrera, thank you for the question. What are some of your favorite moments you had meeting a wrestler? I've talked about a million of these. Excuse me. I don't have enough time to get to all of them, but some of the nicest wrestlers I've met was Mick Foley. Met him at a gas station, and I did the Dude Love Knee dance, and he loved it. I've chased wrestlers down the road on the freeway, watched Godfather and Savio Vega throw shit out the window at each other and swerve around traffic, basically playing a game of littering and speeding with each other. Witnessed that. Had a really cool interaction with Edge and Christian and Chris Jericho on the side of the road after Unforgiven one year when a 18-wheeler overturned and blocked the highway, and driver got out, but nobody could pass, and we pulled up to try to help, and the first ones to pull up was a minivan, and out popped Jericho, Edge, and Christian, and they sat on the side of the road and hung out with us, and they thought we were in the accident, tried to make sure we were okay, asked us if we needed rides and shit, and we were fine. We weren't even involved. We were just the first ones to pull over, but they were cool. That was really fun. Waffle House was an amazing time back in the day. If you went to a Waffle House after a wrestling show, you were 100% guaranteed to run into somebody from the show. A wrestler, a personality, somebody, but most likely a wrestler. And even because Waffle Houses are littered down the entire interstate, so if you miss one, there will be another Waffle House at the next exit too. So no matter what Waffle House you stop at, you're going to run into wrestlers. And we had great interactions with Crush and Vader and DOA and all sorts of fucking people, man, we've met over the years. It was a lot of fun, but not one really sticks out as the best except for maybe Mick Foley, because he was so great. And then on the Jericho cruise, I met a ton of people, all very cool. Cody was awesome. Scott Hall was awesome, who recently passed away. Booker T, a lot of the Elite, all of them were so cool. So I don't know if one really sticks out, but I've been relatively lucky. I haven't met a ton of people because I don't do convention. I've never been to a convention or been to an autograph signing. I've never waited in line for an autograph ever. So for anybody. So I don't have a whole lot of pictures of like me with the wrestlers because I've never really gone through that. It's just going to have to be by dumb luck, running into them or whatever. And a lot of times when I meet somebody like that, I don't like to ask for a picture. In my job, I meet a lot of famous people, like athletes and shit like that. We got the Farmers Open in here right now. I met the president of the PGA 2 nights ago. And a lot of golfers come in and celebrities stay in the area. Football players have houses in the area. It's just a really kind of like ritzy area where I work. So they're all in the restaurant. And even back in my home in North Carolina, I met Michael Jordan like 5 times. Never once did I ask for a picture. I don't like it. I think it's the fear of rejection. Like I don't want to be told no. So even though they probably would have graciously done it, I've always kind of been odd and just kind of been shy about asking for pictures. So I just don't. And same goes for autograph signings and shit. I've never really waited in line except for when I was on the Jericho cruise, when it was kind of what you did was just go and meet everybody. And to do that, you kind of had to wait your turn. So that's the only time I guess I've waited in line, but that wasn't for an autograph and I didn't pay for it. It was just part of the deal. So I've been lucky to meet some cool people and had some pretty cool interactions too, social media and some nice DMs with some wrestlers who have said nice things. So I've been pretty lucky with that stuff. Fox Star Killer asks, who was Chad Frost a pseudonym for on Young Rock, and why was it Shawn Michaels? I haven't really watched Young Rock, so I don't know who Chad Frost is. Is he somebody who's in the locker room? I know they've been depicting a lot of stars from the WWE locker room at that time. Is there a guy there named Chad Frost that's comes off like Shawn Michaels? Because everybody else, they're using the real names. I saw the Triple H and the Chyna and the Undertaker and all that terrible casting that they did for that. I think Luke Hawx is Stone Cold, right? So they have wrestlers playing real wrestling personas of the past, but for some reason they've left out Shawn. Is that because of the beef between Shawn and Rock? I don't even know what that's about. I've got some more questions. By the way, thank you to all of the channel members for all of your great questions. Wanted to make sure you guys took top priority, and if there are any more in the chat, we will get to those in a minute. Excuse me. Got some more questions written down from non-channel members. Want to start with Rebecca from Scottsdale. Favorite women's wrestler of all time. Trish Stratus is my answer to that, because it's tough. I was always a big Medusa fan. I was always a big Sherry Martel fan. But women's wrestling was tough to get into and follow when I was a kid, because it was so sporadic and infrequent, and it wasn't always featured, and you had no time to follow anybody or become fans of anyone's work from TV. You saw a little bit in wrestling magazines, but it was really hard to follow in the 80s. And then in the 90s, it was a little bit, then you started seeing the Sherrys and the Lunas popping up on TV. Sherry Martel was a former ladies champion at the end of the 80s there, tail end of the 80s. I was never a big Moolah fan. Liked Luna Vachon, but, I wouldn't consider her my favorite. And then you roll into the Alundra Blaze era, who was a fine talent and brought a lot of great Japanese talent over to work with her, like Bull Nakano, who's always been one of my favorites, and Aja Kong, and Bertha Faye, and everybody else that she worked with when she was there. But again, that was a division that was non-existent. There was no stories, no angles, nothing going on there. It was just a belt for the sake of having a belt, and they literally had one woman under contract, which was ridiculous when you think about it. So Alundra never really became my favorite, even though I really did like Medusa. Alundra Blaze, I didn't give a shit. And then, of course, we would see what she would go on to do with that championship belt. And then we would go into like 96 and the beginning of the Attitude Era, when Sable got in the ring, who was not a wrestler, and she wasn't very good at all. But you started having some wrestlers come in. You had Miss Jackie come in. You had Ivory, and you started bringing in some women who could actually work. And then you went into that era of having some good women's wrestlers, the Mollys and the Ivorys and the Jacquelines. And then you would have the Trishes, the Trish Stratus, who came in kind of, again, as WWE's answer to what Tori Wilson was doing in WCW. And she came in as a fitness model that was just there for TNA. That was the name of their tag team even. That was literally the whole reason why she was there. And then they started putting her in the ring, and instead of just being like anybody else that was good looking, that they just stuck in the ring, she was actually kind of good. And then she got a little bit better, and then she got a little bit spunkier, and she started really, really improving. And I remember kind of having a smarky type of condescending attitude about her. I'm like, she's not a wrestler. She's a bikini model. She can't wrestle. And then she just started getting better. And I remember I was so proud of her. Like, she had some kick-ass match. I can't remember where I was or what match it even was. Don't even remember if it was Raw or a pay-per-view. But I remember watching and I'm like, I am so happy for her. I'm like, I gave her so much shit, and she has completely changed my mind. And she has gotten so good. I enjoy her matches now. She's over. She connects with the audience. She's well-liked. She plays a great heel, and she can also play a babyface. And I was so sad when she retired. I mean, I was literally sad, because I was happy that she gave me a reason to care about women's wrestling, because I think if she actually came in with a bunch of experience, if she was a women's wrestler who they signed, I don't know if I would have been as big of a Trish fan. What I liked about Trish and what was so appealing about her is how much she improved, and how on paper she should not have been a good wrestler, coming in as a bikini model with no previous experience. But she fit. And some people are like that. You do have people that come in, they're just giving wrestling a shot, and it just fits perfectly with them. And Trish really got over, and she had great runs with the title as a heel and a babyface. And she made me respect the women's championship for the first time in I don't know how long. And so, and I always thought she was so much better, even though I loved Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler. Anybody who says they don't is police. Loved them. They were shit in the ring. Shit. So they couldn't work. I think Tori could do a couple flips and Stacy could do the Kevin Nash boot in the corner spot, which was great. But at the end of the day, they weren't, they couldn't wrestle a lick. And I thought Trish was just better than them, and she had improved, and she was having good matches. And when she would run into women who could work, like the Victorias, the Molly Hollies, she was having great matches with them. So Trish is my answer, is my favorite women's wrestler of all time. You got some great ones now, you know, the Charlottes and the Sashas and the Beckys and the Baileys, and we've got the Rhea Ripleys and Bianca Belairs. I'm a fan of all of them. It's yet to be determined if one of them will overtake Trish for my favorite women's wrestler of all time, but I'm sticking with Trish. She's been my favorite wrestler for quite a while now, and I'm gonna maintain Trish. And the reason I give her the nod is because how hard she worked and how much she improved. And I think I appreciated that. My buddy, Amato Gonzalez, you might not even still be awake. You DM'd this one to me today. Thanks, dude. Amato's a great, great listener and a great friend. I met him when we went to Double or Nothing in Vegas last year. My hope is to go to Double or Nothing in Vegas this year again, where we will rendezvous and hopefully meet up again. And he's been the reason for a lot of these things hanging on the wall and stuff in here too. He's been awesome. So thank you again, Amato. He asks, what is the best ending to a Rumble that hasn't been topped since? For me, it would have to be Taker, HBK, Rumble 07, only because I was there live. That's awesome. So the best ending since. So that one was back in 07. Shit, man, I'm really bad at current Rumbles or more current Rumbles. What kind of great finishes have we seen? We had some stinkers, man. We had some pretty bad ones, and 14 and 15 and 16 might have sucked. Isn't 16 the year that Triple H won and stuff? So shit, man, I don't remember. Well, last good one. I will say maybe Drew, maybe McIntyre in 2020 was pretty badass. Taker and HBK would probably be more special to me too, because what I liked about that one is it had been so long since Taker and HBK had anything to do with each other, because even though Shawn had been back, they were on separate shows. And back then the brand split actually kind of meant something, and they weren't interacting. So it was a long time coming for them to finally be in the ring again. And then I think it took 3 more years to finally get them in the ring again, or 2 more, until they finally wrestled 2 years later in 2009. So that was kind of the tease for it. So Taker won that year, correct? And would go on to WrestleMania. And if you notice, that was a pattern. And it might be a pattern that we still see today. I know they did it with Cena and Batista as well, and there might be other examples of that, where the final 2 guys in the ring both go to WrestleMania to face the champion regardless of who wins. Because in 05, Cena and Batista both went, and here in 07, HBK and Taker both got championship matches, right? Because Taker fought Shawn faced Cena in the main event. I guess that was because Triple H got injured, but still, it counts, right? So, yeah, I might have to go with your pick from 07, but the other one that does stand out is McIntyre in 20. It's a shame that he couldn't get that payoff at WrestleMania, and the pandemic stopped all that from happening. My God. I want to thank Kelvin Sanchez for the email. He showed me some examples. I guess we were talking in a recent stream of the finisher that Bret Hart used to use prior to the sharpshooter, because the sharpshooter kind of came about during the second singles run. And I was curious what he was even using the first time, but I didn't really think he needed a finisher because he was probably jobbing a lot. And Kelvin pointed out that he was using a pile driver and sent me some matches with some examples of that. So that was cool. Thank you so much, Kelvin. I'm going to go back here to the chat, knock out super chats, see if there's anything else you guys want to talk about. And then I think we should wrap things up, because this has been a 3.5 hour long stream. And aside from a watch along, I can't recall the last time I sat up here and actually talked for 3.5 hours. So I am getting pretty tired, but we'll go back to the chat here. See what we've got. Jimmy, I got you. Chaz, I got you. Steven Escalante, appreciate that $5, my friend. You, JD, Salamonster, Don Tony are the best wrestling podcasts, in my opinion. Thank you so much. Never heard of any of those guys. None of them. They sound like jabronis. But I appreciate you including me in that. So good luck to those solo Tonys and all those guys. I don't know who they are, but I hope you enjoy their podcast. Just kidding. Thank you. That's great company. Appreciate that very much, Steven. You've got 5 more coming in. Crowd booed on Monday when they thought Vince was coming out, but it ended up being Teddy Long. They thought Vince was coming out. They didn't play Vince's music, did they? They played Teddy's music. He came out there. Oh, it was because Triple H was saying, oh, I wonder if somebody's got it. Who the hell thought Vince was coming? I didn't. I do think it was weird that Teddy did all that work, that GM work on SmackDown, but yet he's a Raw legend. Whatevs. A-Dog Gonzalez is still here. That's good. I'm barely here, but I'm here too. Yeah, Byron, because I had already read these questions, so I knew Trish was going to be my answer. That's why I threw her on here. I couldn't decide to put on the fucking overlay, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about Eddie and Brett and Trish and probably Danielson, and I just said, F it. I needed to put something up and get that done today, but I knew I was going to be talking about Trish. What if WWE brings back Awesome Kong? Quentin Brockington asks. They could. In the Rumble, I mean, with the Women's Rumble, you got some spots in there. I don't even know what her deal is these days. How is she? How's her health? How old is she? Jay Lambo, appreciate the 10. If Eddie Guerrero was alive, how would you book Dominic versus Eddie? Holy shit. Well, if Eddie Guerrero was alive, he'd be in his late 50s, right? Or mid 50s. No, late. He's been gone. How long has he been gone? 18 years? Damn. And he was about 40. Yeah, he'd be late 60s, man. Or late 50s, excuse me. How would I book Eddie versus Dominic? I don't know if they do that match. I don't think Eddie would come in to work with Dominic. I think the match would be with Ray, but I think Eddie would have an influence. He would show up and maybe side with Ray, trying to talk sense into Dominic, and they could call back to, remember how horrible I was, Holmes, to you? I treated you like shit, man. I learned from my mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes I did, Holmes. Or however Eddie would say it, He would plead to Dominic, I was such a shithead to you. I tried to take you away from your family. Your father's like a brother to me. All that, pleading with Dominic, and Dominic's like, fuck you, stepdad, or whatever. That would be fun. I wish Eddie was still alive. It's just fucking shame, man. Fucking shame. All right, I'm going to cruise over here, see what else we've got, if anybody's got some cool things to say, and then I'm probably going to sign off here. And I'm very proud of us for going 3.5 hours tonight. And I appreciate you guys being here. So if anybody is here and has not yet hit that thumbs up button, please do that as we're signing off here. As a reminder, too, like Sonic Plays is going to be here Saturday. Make sure you're here with us on Saturday. We're going to be watching the whole Royal Rumble pay-per-view together. And that should be a whole lot of fun, and we'll see if anything we speculated on here comes true. Dominic's got a little bit of Eddie, a little bit of Ray, a little bit of Conan in him. I'm really liking Dominic. There was a video posted today I saw on social media of Rhea training Dominic for the Royal Rumble, and he's like standing on the second rope. She goes, what are you doing? There's no standing on the second rope in the Rumble. Do you want to get eliminated? Get down. And he goes, see, mommy. And he jumps down. And she's like, he's so easy to train. She's literally taming him in the ring. It's hysterical. Amazing. And they're very cute together. We've got Michael Kumo. Appreciate the $5. Kong is 45, I believe. I know years ago she did have a kid, right? Steven Escalante. Appreciate the $2. Which wrestling podcasts do you listen to? I honestly don't have a lot of time to listen. I have been way checked out of all the Conrad shows. I haven't listened to something to wrestle in quite some time. Anytime Elizabeth and I go on the road or something, we usually put on a grilling JR or something. But I don't even have any go-tos because I don't really have time. I'm always working on my own shit, and I don't really have a lot of commute to my job. I drive about 20 minutes a day, and I usually just listen to some music or something. And I don't really have a lot of time to listen to podcasts, but I definitely have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people that I like in the community. I have a lot of respect. Somebody mentioned Monster a minute ago. I got a lot of respect for him. I like Steven Larson. I like guys like that. I like the work that they do over on Fightful. So basically, the nicer, more polite side of the community is kind of where I gravitate to. But I don't have any go-tos because nothing against anybody. Everybody who does podcasts, I'm sure, does awesome work. It's just I don't really have time to listen to a ton of people. But if something comes across me or if I'm recommended something, sometimes I click on it, but I don't have any religious podcasts that I listen to. I'm kind of boring in that sense. I'm the same way with video games and movies and shit. I don't really watch a whole lot. Although I'm getting better with the movies. Me and Elizabeth are knocking out a bunch of movies. And with TV, we just finished up last night, watched the final episode of Arrested Development, finally finished that series. And now we're going to start Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which I've never seen. So everybody says it's fucking crazy and I need to watch it. And so that's next. Still haven't hit Breaking Bad yet. That will come. That's coming. But I think Always Sunny is the direction we're going to go in next. But in terms of podcasts, no. Do I watch Wrestle Talk? If their video is recommended to me or if somebody tags me in it, then yes, but I don't search it out. And I try to subscribe to the people in the community that I like, even if I don't watch their stuff. I'm subscribed to Fightful. I'm subscribed to No DQ. I'm subscribed to Monster and Brian Zane. Just Alex is in here. Not a ton of people, but a few. Wrestle Talk's in here. Botchamania's in here. Steven Larson. Kick to the Gut. Shout out to them. Kick to the Gut podcast. Look them up. They do great work. I was a guest on their show a couple years ago, back in my old house. And I think they broadcast from Singapore, and they're awesome. Trying to think who else. Boy, back in the, guess who I'm still subscribed to? I just clicked on it here. TV Tracks. Oh, this channel still exists. I'm on here. A couple of us, it's basically me and Monster primarily featured on here. We were the two big ones. Oh, Don Tony's on here too. So Tracks was really cool. Putting me on here. And that helped. That helped grow the channel a lot because he had a big audience, 70,000 subscribers. And Monster really deserves credit for building that channel. Like his clips really, really grew it. And it had already grown pretty big by the time Tracks hit me up and added me. But yeah, that was all fun shit, man. Yeah, Barry, I have seen the wrestling bios. That's good stuff. Really well-produced stuff. I've seen a little bit of it. Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah, and I have listened to Click This. I've actually listened to quite a lot of Click This, to be honest. Not like with headphones or in the car or anything, but kind of when I'm doing stuff, editing, messing around, whatever, I've had a little bit of that on. And that's a good podcast. I love Kevin Nash. Sean Oliver does a great job. And I'm glad he's found a home as a podcast host because that kayfabe commentary stuff was great. But podcasts kind of just killed all of that. He would do one interview and sell it for $30. Where now you're just doing podcasts and everything's free. So I'm glad that Sean has, kind of transitioned and, becoming the co-host with Nash is really good. And it's a great podcast and they both do a great job. Yeah, Trex contacted all of us and said that he was taking a break. So I don't even know who was in charge of that, but whoever it was, I hope everything worked out with him okay. Certainly no hard feelings. I just created mic drops and, we continued on business as usual. But it was cool to have that little extra extension advertisement for the channel back then. It was a big help. Yeah, and a lot of people were introduced to this channel through TV Tracks back in the day. Stephen Harris, I don't listen to Jim Cornette. But I will say I did listen to a good portion of his Jay Briscoe tribute. And I talked about that, how it was kind of cool to, kind of hear the real Jim, because I think so much of his persona and everything on the podcast is to satisfy that, that salivating, brain melting, I hate AEW portion of the fan base that can't enjoy wrestling, that has to actually spend and devote time to hating, is really weird content to want to listen to, but there's a big part of that audience out there that's fucking miserable. and they're not happy unless they're listening to somebody else bitch and yell and moan. So I'm just grateful that I don't live that way, and that I don't need to hear that to feel satisfied, and because of that kind of nature, I just stopped listening to Jim. Just really don't give a shit. I don't need to hear him shit on stuff I enjoy. So I just choose not to listen. But when it came to Jay Briscoe, I was interested in that because underneath that facade of hypocrisy, or that cloak of hypocrisy that Jim wears, lies an extremely knowledgeable dude with all sorts of great stories and anecdotes and knowledge and wisdom, and all of that stuff is there. So listening to him talk about anything that's not related to putting down or shitting on a wrestling company, wrestlers, or wrestling fans, which he does all three simultaneously. Aside from that, anything that's not that, I will listen to from Jim Cornette because he's fucking hilarious. But that was a big turnoff to me, and I just won't do it. I see the world in very basic terms, in very simple terms. So if I'm turned off by somebody's content, I'm not going to watch it. I'm certainly not going to hate watch it at all. I'm not even subscribed to his podcast. I don't even want to see his shit in my feed, to be honest. But if something interesting comes up, I will click on it because I do have, underneath all of that, a great deal of respect for Jim Cornette. I just don't like kind of what he's become in this shit. It's just crazy. But anyway, respect to anybody really who's on YouTube and doing good numbers, because this shit is hard. So yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, I'm not aware of any podcaster drama or falling outs or anything like that. Don't follow any of that stuff either. I don't really know. I'm really happy to not have any drama. Anybody who I don't like, I just don't listen to. So it's not really hard for me. Yeah, I haven't really seen Don Tony's show, but I know he's over on YouTube now. And like I said, I go way back with him because back when I did the hotlines back in the 90s, he put me in touch with somebody that actually got my own hotline. I learned of him through somebody else, and I learned of other people through him. I had he and I spoke on the phone a few times back in the day. I know I was a guest on his hotline, and I forgot why I was like even talking to him, but this is even pre-internet and stuff. So he might've had a computer. I just had a little shitty compact that I was downloading music from Napster. I really wasn't online surfing the web and doing stuff and on message boards. But I was kind of doing the hotline stuff, and he was one of the ones that was on there, and he remained. And then I took a big break from wrestling once the hotline days were over, for maybe years 2002 to 2010, I wasn't really doing anything wrestling related. I was eyeballing the product and watching it and watching the Manias and watching most pay-per-views, but not all of them, but wasn't really even that dialed into wrestling news or like really were surfing websites at the time. I would look at it every now and then, but it wasn't something that I would check daily, where I think he maintained, and moved into the podcast land or the radio show land, and he had internet radio and all that. He did all that stuff, where I had a big gap where I just stopped, and then I resurfaced on YouTube all those years ago and, developed a moderate following. So I've been happy with it. LA Knight did an interview with Chris Van Vliet today. That's cool. He kept saying bro every other word. Bro. Oh, Vince Russo. Sorry. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't listen to Vince Russo either. I don't listen to anybody who's an asshole. So you just take that for you. You can determine, me, my personality. I think you can probably deduct who I would think is an asshole in the community. And so I just don't listen. I don't shit on those people. I just don't listen to them. It's just not my cup of juice. Because tea's gross. Give me juice. Not my cup of beer. Well, I am pretty proud of us. We are 3 hours and 42 minutes into this stream, and I think it's time to give it a rest because we were up here on Monday night. We were up here last night. We were back up here tonight. You guys might be getting sick of my ass, and I need to get some stuff done and have some dinner tonight now that it's approaching 10 o'clock. So thank you so much for hanging out. It was fun to do a Q&A again. I know we haven't done one in a while. There was a couple of questions I didn't get to. I apologize, but I think we need to start wrapping things up here. I am going to be off from YouTube tomorrow, so nothing hitting the channel tomorrow, but make sure you're here on Saturday night. We're going to be watching the Royal Rumble together. It's going to be all kinds of fun, and I'm really looking forward to Saturday and seeing what the hell happens, what we see, who the surprises are, who wins the Rumble, who leaves as champion. All that's going to be a ton of fun. So thank you so much for hanging out tonight and all of you who stuck with me. And if you are on the East Coast, like I said, you're approaching now 1 a.m, and I appreciate that a lot. So you guys enjoy the rest of your night. I will see you in less than 2 days for our Royal Rumble watch along, and I think that's going to be a blast. So